Another spring in the Hoosier State, where in the aptly named city of Bloomington, the cherry blossoms ring in a season of rebirth on the Indiana University campus. But on this day, the spirit of competition echoes through the limestone as 33 teams prepare for the world's greatest college weekend.
Delta, Tau Delta, and R.J. Stewart are going to win the Little 500 in 2012.
It has been 1 year since the Cutters dynasty came to an end as the men of Delta Tau Delta shocked the world. Will there be a repeat, or will another Greek team arise?
This is the world's greatest college weekend.
This is the world's greatest college weekend.
Live from Bloomington, Indiana, this is the 63rd running of the Little 500 on Access TV.
Riders at the ready, and they're going to make 1 year of hard work pay off through the fall and the winter and the spring series events. It's time for the pinnacle of the racing season in Bloomington, the 2013 Little 500. Mother Nature is cooperating today. It is spectacular. Weather in the mid-50s, sun is out, and we are ready to race. Rich Cellini joined by two proud IU alums and Little 500 veterans, Jason Sonneborn and Hans Arneson. Today is about racing, but the entire year building up to this, Jason, this is bigger than just a day of racing.
Oh, absolutely. Campus is alive. There's a tradition. There's a sense of purpose with this race. Rich, it really stands for three things. One, we're building student leaders, both with the Student Foundation and out there on the track. Two, the race's primary purpose, scholarships for working students. Today, we've raised over $1.5 million, scholarships for working students. And three, a connection with IU and with this race. So many alumni come back each year for this race. It really is a special tradition.
Town of Bloomington has doubled in size for the world's greatest college weekend. Hans, a champion for ATO in 2006. What does today mean to you as a rider?
This is a really special day as a rider. I mean, this is the main event. Every race that these riders are doing, preparing for this, as in collegiate races, in summer bike races, is seen as practice for these guys. There's no contracts to be renewed. There's no money to be won today. It's just the pride and honor of hoisting the Borg Warner Trophy at lap 200.
Well, a season ago, the question was, could anybody knock off the Cutters? And our answer was yes, as we look back to 2012. As you might expect, we had some good racing, but we also had a few mishaps.
We had a mishap, and you'll see it here shortly. This is a Cutters wreck late in the race, just before lap 180, and that really sparked the pivotal move by Delta Tau Delta. A breakaway, R.J. Stewart on the bike, able to hold on in time trial for 16 laps, closing out the race. A Delta Tau Delta picking up their first win.
Well, you just had to wonder, could he hold on and close it out? And Hansi did.
He sure did. He showed remarkable strength there at the end of the race, time trialing to a win.
Yeah, big question now, can they repeat? There are a number of teams to watch this year. Who do you like in 2013?
In 13, I like number 13 for the Cutters. Our winningest team in Little 500 history. We've got the fastest man on the track in Kevin DePass. He's won ITTs and missing out. A really strong number two, Tim Nixon, another senior on the team. Well-rounded team, 13 and 13 for the Cutters.
You know, Cutters are the team to watch, obviously, from everybody down on the track earlier, Hans, but there are some other teams who can make a push.
That's right. I think if you had to pick another team, it's got to be Beta Theta Pi. They are remarkable. They have the strength in all four riders. They are all veteran riders, and I think that's going to pay off for them today.
Delta Tau Delta are defending champ. They get to wear the yellow jersey, and we spent some time with the men who are the reigning Little 500 champions.
With last year's field running perhaps the most conservative race in Little 500 history, as the championship laps approached, a clear winner was all but certain. That is, until Delta Tau Delta's senior sprinter R.J. Stewart saddled up for the last 12 laps of his Little 500 career.
Young man, a native of Indianapolis. He's got the lead and a lap to go to capture the Little 500. Delta Tau Delta and R.J. Stewart are going to win the Little 500 in 2012.
My last race, my last set, my last lap, I had to keep going. Yeah, finish it with a bang.
I was speechless, putting 2-3 years of training all down for one day. And, to have us come out on top like that, it felt pretty good.
It was 62 years in the making, and we finally got the victory. You could tell the excitement of the entire house is afterwards when everyone joined us on the track, and it's the best feeling I've had in college, so it was great. Today, it's going to be us again. We're hoping to bring it back again. I think we'd be the 4th team in history to do it 2 years in a row.
We probably have the strongest 4 on the track, the deepest team. You know, a lot of teams have a strong 1-2 punch, but it really takes all 4 guys, as it proved last year, to win the race. And I don't really see anybody beating our 4th or our 3rd or our 2nd or our 1st. And yeah, I mean, I'd say today would probably come out with the victory again.
Certainly is a difficult task. How tough is it to repeat?
We have very few repeat champions in the race. Cutters did it consistently in the late 2000s. The toughest thing is really, you gotta have Lady Luck on your side. You've got mechanicals, you've got wrecks that happen throughout the race. So Delta Tau Delta needs a clean, perfect race on their side in order to repeat today.
Yeah, the big target goes on to the back of the Cutters. They're still the favorite team.
Absolutely, they're the favorite team. They've got a 1-2 punch, top 2 riders on the track. I mean, look for them to be out there and attack, I think, in this race.
Sans, they also have a senior statistics major, Sam Harbison, who got a little bit philosophical when talking about the little 500.
Last year we just wrecked.
Kevin's down. Cutters is down.
Really, we tried all we could and nothing didn't happen. You know, luck wasn't on our side that day. You know, you can train all year for this race, but if you don't have like just a little bit of luck on your side, you're not gonna win. We always talk about this, the pendulum of life. It swings back and forth. It swung back and took us down last year, but it's swinging forward. You know, there are highs and lows. And we hit a real low point last year, and there's really, you know, we can go up from there. We're expecting to, and we trained like we were going to, so we're ready for this year.
Pendulum of luck, how do you like that? That's a little deep.
That is a little deep. Sam's a thoughtful young man. He's going to eat up a lot of laps today. Sam's really strong. I've seen him on the track, and he just essentially owns the peloton. He's a guy that goes where he wants to go on the track.
You know, yesterday we had the women's race, 26th running. The track was in really good condition. We're hoping for a little more of that today, and for more on that, let's go down to the infield and check in with Jill Savage.
Thanks so much, Rich. Yesterday we had cold, windy conditions. Today I'm happy to report the sun is out. It's beautiful, a little breeze down here, but it should not play a role in today's race. The track conditions, as you mentioned yesterday, they were perfect. That led to a very clean race for the women, and we expect the same for the men today. I'll be down here in the pits all afternoon. We're standing right outside of Beta Theta Pi's pit, but as you've been mentioning all morning so far, we are watching the Cutters. They have the target on their back. They came out and said they are fired up and ready to be here for today's race because they want that yellow jersey back, Rich.
Yeah, I certainly get the feeling, gentlemen and Jill, that the Cutters are a little bit angry about getting knocked off their perch a season ago. But hey, you're the champ till somebody knocks you off, and now they're going to have to chase a little bit, and we will continue with more from Armstrong Stadium as we work our way toward the green flag and the start of a day of racing here in Indiana.
The 63rd running of the Little 500 on Access TV. We'll be back in a moment.
Couldn't ask for anything more at this point. Bill Armstrong Stadium, and getting ready for the 63rd running of the Little 500 here on Access TV. A lot of those fans in the stands taking part of kegs and eggs and various other activities throughout the morning. Temperature at 47 and climbing. Wind just at 10 miles an hour and mostly sunny. Flags much calmer today than they were yesterday. Yesterday they were blowing stiff throughout the day, and they never let up. Teams getting introduced for their ceremonial walk around the track. What a weekend of racing we have here on Access TV. Today the men's race, yesterday the 26th running of the women's race. We wondered, could it get any better than a year ago under the lights? The answer was yes. Everybody out and about last night saying this may have been the best women's race in the history of the running.
I've never seen anything like it. The balance of the field, 9 women's team on the lead lap towards the end of the race, and Kappa Kappa Gamma just throttled it, threw it down with less than 4 or 5 to go, and you saw an incredible comeback towards the end of this race. There you're looking at Alpha Chi Omega, great race. Teeter in the white jersey winning the series events, also a strong performance.
but we get a repeat performance.
Yeah, it was a great race. I mean, it was one of the most competitive races that I've ever seen in the women's race. And Dukes got on the bike. She knew what to do. She knows how to win. She did it last year, and she showed her strength, flexed her muscles there, came around in turn 3, led out the sprint in turn 4, and she ended with a huge gap to win it by herself.
And the line of the night around town, Deja Dukes. Casey Dukes and the DGs are going to hold on to those yellow jerseys. Second consecutive Little 500 championship. Delta Gamma, followed by Kappa Alpha Theta, Wing It, Crew Cycling, and Melanzana. Those two teams in 4 and 5 came from the back of the pack and really put together a strong race.
You've got to be impressed by teams that can move up like Crew and Melanzana did. They rode up towards the front the entire day, and they finished with top 5s. And you got some of the perennials on the top, Kappa Alpha Theta in second, and Delta Gamma with their 3rd win in their history this year.
We spend so much time getting to know some of the riders throughout in this Little 500, and the chance to visit and get to know Beta Theta Pi here at the Little 5.
For the past 2 years, the men of Beta Theta Pi have sat atop the pole after qualifications. But like any racer, whether it's with a 650 horsepower engine or a fixed gear Little 5 bike, starting number 1 means the rest of the field sees nothing but a target.
So in last year's race, we were pretty much comfortably at the front, riding in the top 3 for the entirety of the race, and with 6 laps to go, I crashed.
Oh, that crushes their chances here with 192 in the books.
That still haunts me to this day. I still have the cinders in my knee, but I've thought about that crash every day for the last year leading up to today, and now excited to hopefully go have a better result this year.
This was the second year we qualified in the pool. I think we handled it and approached it with much more perspective this year, actually. Last year we kind of got caught up in the rah-rah stuff around the event and the attention and focus, and sometimes someone would say a curse surrounding the pole position in the green jersey. But this year we've approached it with perspective that our focus is today, race day, and nothing more.
We've been through the media hoopla and hearing the pole team, Beta Theta Pi, every time the announcer says your name. And you know, it does rally you a little bit, and it does put that notion in your head, especially when you've got a bunch of casual fans of the race who don't understand what exactly means to be the best team. They see the number 1, okay, oh, we're the best, but we're definitely not letting it get to our heads this year, and we're approaching it with a much more calm, cool, collected attitude.
How difficult is it to block out all of the things that surround this world's greatest college weekend and simply focus on the race?
It is difficult, but you heard them in the feature. They talked about being focused, and that's exactly what they told me this morning talking to the riders. That's big for them. They don't want to make any of the same mistakes this year. To them, if they can overcome that, they've got a great shot at winning this year's race.
Pole position, back-to-back years, obviously a very talented team.
And great teamwork, right? It shows you can hand off exchanges well, warming up. They've got a lot of experience in their pit, too. So John Grant won the race in 2003 for Gafambi. You know, they're back. I started the race in that pole position. It's a tough place to spot because you do have a target on your back. It doesn't necessarily mean you're the strongest team. You get that attention, which they talked on, but it looks like this year they're focused and they're ready to go.
Well, as you two can attest, and we heard just right there in that piece, the quote, "I still have the cinders in my leg." Let's take a look at some of the ups and downs that happened in the Little 5.
Oh, and there was a crash at the back of the field. Sometimes riders just overlap. Oh, and the cutter rider, we just had a crash.
And a pile up.
Huge crash. That's Phi Delta Theta Sigma Chi. Cutters are down.
And we've got our first crash in the back of the pack.
Absolute carnage. We had a guy on his top tube here. Team number 30.
Oh, and a spill by Kappa Kappa Gamma.
They're not having quite the day they had hoped for there.
Oh, look at that getaway. And some of the bumping and another little mishap.
Just shot all the way on the inside, and what really hurts about that is that you just hit your shoulder and your collarbone right on that cement gutter. Oh, that was not a good exchange. And we already have a crash. Yeah, really just chain reaction crashes, you know.
Oh, that one you really can't see what happened.
Looked like somebody got stuck on the gutter there and just went all the way to the outside.
Rider still down. And we've got another pile up on the backside.
Our first crash.
And it's a huge one. Huge one in turn 1.
Oh, we just had another big crash.
Yep, and they're still piling up. Best way to clean it, get out the wire brush, and there's some brave fans. It's just, 47 and climbing a little bit right now. What time do you have to start painting yourself to get all that on by the time the race starts?
And they might have a couple other liquids in their stomachs, but before they're putting the paint on their chest. Hans and I were out running around campus early today, and it just starts early in Bloomington on Little 500. We saw, out in front of the fraternities, out in front of the dormitories. We had houses around campus. Big parties, lots of students, and a lot of fun this weekend.
And that's what this entire event was meant for, to get everybody involved, to get school spirit to an all-time high, and it has been a tremendous success.
Yeah, it's connecting students back to campus after they graduate. And we saw it earlier with steering committee awards today, right? Recognizing leaders on campus, whether you are volunteering for Student Foundation or whether you have a team of 4 riders on the track. It's really a special thing, and it does keep you coming back to Indiana University for years after the race.
And so much of the tradition and things that happen in this race, from the start with Howdy Wilcox, is taking that from the Indianapolis 500. And one of the key pieces strategy-wise in this race is exchanges and how you get them done, and whether or not you can get them done in a clean fashion.
That's right, they're not always clean, but here we've got a typical bike exchange, and the main point of this is to keep the bike going as fast as possible. You'll see the bike never slows down. One rider's going to grab it, the bike's going to keep moving, the other rider hops on. It's really excellent when they can execute it perfectly like that.
We see that throughout. There are really more now 2 type of exchanges. We used to see 3. One has kind of gone by the wayside.
Yeah, a couple of the older teams around, Acacia and Kappa Alpha Theta, they did something called a ghost exchange years ago. And they thought it was a little bit quicker. Essentially, they hopped off the back of the bike. What you see today, we heard it when we walked around the track before the start, less risk, right? So a bike-to-bike exchange is less risk. And a rider exchange is a little bit simpler than the ghost as well.
Riders come and go throughout their collegiate career. The bikes have remained constant.
Wayne Stetina in the 70s, he came off the Olympics to ride the Little 500. He called it the great equalizer. Not a lot's changed, and some of the facets are still the same as they were when we started the race in 1951. The gearing, it's a 46x18 gear, single speed, so when you hit that wall, when you start to hit that pain cave, there's no smaller gear you can shift in. It really starts to crush it. The pedals on the road, we ride with clipless pedals. Here on the track, Little 500, we're hopping on and off the bike. We got those flat pedals.
They've got everybody has to ride the same tires out there, so you can gain no advantage with those. You've also got the flat rubber pedals, which he talked about. You can change out the pedals, but you can't put clips on them. The most fun thing, though, is having that coaster brake. I mean, you're coming in and you're skidding 20 yards when you're doing an exchange to your teammate.
That type of tire on this type of cinder track, what is that relationship like? We just saw the crash package a couple minutes ago. Doesn't look like it always grabs maybe as well as you would like.
No, that's true. And then the further out you get from the gutter, the track gets a little more loose. That's where you don't want to be riding all day. You can slide out on those cinders. But today, the track looks phenomenal. It's in great condition. We actually saw the track steaming this morning. It froze here overnight, so the track was so cold and so hard. I think we're going to see excellent conditions out there today.
Which will make it fast, and what we can hope for is that the clean part of the women's race yesterday is what, hopefully we can get today, another clean men race. And I mean, there's a good shot right there of what you talked about, steam coming out of the track, and everybody down below said they'd never seen this before.
I had never seen it. It's my 12th time calling the race, and we hadn't seen it. But what Hans is alluding to is that groove and that hard pack that you get. You get that hard groove a couple feet outside from the gutter, and that's where the guys want to ride. When you start to, sift 10 to 15 feet outside, it's not an ideal position. So you want to ride in that groove all throughout the day.
People talked about trying to find opportunities down there and looking for a way to ride your own race. The one unanimous point everybody made is they don't want it to come down to a final sprint with the cutters. As we look at race information here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, quarter-mile cinder track, 33 teams, the maximum 4 riders per team, 200 laps to determine a champion of the men's Little 500 and a minimum of 10 exchanges during the race. And here is Father Cassian.
In welcoming the Reverend Father Cassian Asama from St. Paul Student Catholic Center for today's invocation.
Please, let us have a moment of silence for the victims of the bombing in Boston and for the victims of the fire that happened in Texas.
Uh-oh, that's her fourth. Uh-oh, is that five? No, she's just pulling it all the way. Come on, Paige, one more, get it in. Oh, she did it. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Ding, 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 ding. It's left in before you. Sorry, Sammy, there you go.
Eternal and all-powerful God, you have created us so that we might strive to be the best and the most pleasing to you in all that we do. Bless all of these competitors, that they may compete to their fullest capacity and to the best of their ability, that they may be safe, that they might know your abiding presence, and that the disciplines they have developed may be fully exhibited and sustained through this race and throughout their lives. We ask you, all-powerful Lord, to watch over and bless all who are gathered here in a spirit of joy and competition. We thank you, wonderful God, for all of the hard work and dedication of those who worked to make this day possible, and ask you to bless them. May we all come to know your wonderful love and majesty through the experiences of this day. We offer this prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Presenting your colors today, the Pershing Rifles Color Guard from Indiana University's ROTC program. IU's Pershing Rifles is a competitive drill and honor squad that consistently receives high marks in national competition. Be watching skyward for parachuters from Skydive Indianapolis, bringing to us today the American flag and the state of Indiana flag. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom, those who now protect it, and we honor those, of course, who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce Mr. Clayton Anderson. Clayton is a country singer from Bedford, Indiana, an Indiana University graduate from 2005. Please stand and remove your caps as Clayton Anderson presents our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, land of the free and the home of the brave.
How about this shot? Coming right over the top of you, Jace. Fans at the ready here at Armstrong Stadium, and the skydiver heading down with the flag and the parachute and the one attached to him. And about that rendition of the national anthem by Clayton Anderson. And the first one able to touch the little 500 logo, and these fans are ready for a little racing. Gorgeous day in Bloomington.
As the starting riders make their way toward the start-finish line.
And after our women's race yesterday, it took us a minute or 3 to thaw out.
It was tough to get the words out yesterday. Today you see them racing without the tights on. You know, you see some oil on their legs trying to get the muscles loosened up and warmed up, but much better weather.
Well, yesterday that stiff wind was a great equalizer. You talk about that bike being the equalizer. That wind didn't allow anybody to break away yesterday in the women's race and kept 8 or 9 of those teams in a tight pack for most of the day.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home.
If you're in the infield and not wearing official credentials as a participant or official, please move to the stands or spectator areas. Only properly accredited personnel are permitted in the infield.
Fans enjoying themselves right now, and riders just trying to do anything to, I think you would imagine you have to enjoy all of the pomp, circumstance, and pageantry that goes on, but then there's got to be a bigger part of you that says, can we please race now?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you try to stay calm when you're out there. You're sitting there. You just want the race to get started. They've been here for a couple hours now at the track. They've been warming up and getting their pits set up, and yeah, you really just want to go. You hear these anthem and you hear Back Home in Indiana, and you know what's coming next. It's the start of the race. They're ready.
lot of different approaches when you walk through the pits in the morning. There are some guys that sit in an easy chair. They're the guys who pedal hard.
Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Mr. Fred Glass.
Ride smart. Keep your heads up. Godspeed and good luck. And now, the words you've all been waiting to hear. Gentlemen, mount your little 500 bicycles.
And now the riders can climb on, and we'll take 3 laps around behind the pace car, one of the great traditions brought down from Indianapolis, and then hit the green flag and get ready for 200 laps to determine a champion.
That's right, racing's important in this state. So our founder, Howdy Wilcox, he founded the race in 1951. His dad had won the Indianapolis 500 in 1919. So a lot of the tradition, a lot of the starting grid that you see here in the Little 500 is patterned just like the Indy 500. You've got 33 teams across 11 rows, 3 wide. And so look for a great start of racing here coming up soon after a couple laps.
Got to give a shout out, the former Howdy Wilcox, Alpha Tau Omega brother.
Yeah, there you go. Let's tie that all together. Good work.
Yep.
We'll have 3 laps before the
ATO in this year's field as well. And
then one faster race
the
stop.
excitement level from around town, and then we've seen some really nice shots of people in their house colors and team colors, and then you just, the amount of enthusiasm, and so many of the quotes and the pieces that we've watched, people talking about representing something that's bigger than yourself as an individual, and the amount of pride you get from that.
Yeah, in a lot of these shots, you can see just the amount of fans out there. You know, Phi Gamma Delta, you'll see a lot of them today. They're starting, just in front of the start-finish line. They've been in almost every race since our first race in 1951, and they lead the all-time standings. So a lot of tradition, and these guys are just trying to represent their school, their houses, their dormitories, and their independent teams well.
Yeah, it's so special to have the whole house, all of your friends coming out here on race day. They're cheering for 2 hours straight. They're amped up the whole time. It's so fun to have them behind you. It really keeps you motivated, and like you said, I mean, you're racing for something bigger than yourself. It's bigger than your team. It's for your house, for tradition.
And the neat part, you talk about friends today, but as you guys see when you're back here every year, friends for a lifetime.
And absolutely, on your team and then not on your team as well. Your competitors on race day, but you've done so much to contribute and to kind of get ready to race today. As you can start to see the starting grid there, you see Beta Theta Pi, our pole team, starting in this pole slot number 1. Black Key Bulls have been in the race since 2007, have not been out of the top 5. So they're a top team today. Look for a good performance out of them. Christian Student Fellowship rounding out that first row. Qualified very well in the 3rd spot.
And in the 2nd row,
you've got Sigma Phi Epsilon. They last won in 1999. It's great to see them back on campus and competing in the race today. Great quals time from them.
Kappa Sigma also in row 2. And Sigma Nu. And there are just, there's a handful of teams that you got the sense that everybody understands who they're going to be. And Fiji as well, very well represented, wearing the orange today.
And Phi Delta Theta, 3 second finishes in the last 3 races. They're hungry, right? Look for them. They've got some wins under the belt. Phi Deltas have won 3 times in their history. Guys currently with a couple seconds. Look for a great ride from Phi Delta Theta today.
In the white shirt, the Cutters.
The Cutters are there, and they're ready. They're angry, like you said. They didn't win last year. I bet you they sure do this year. They want to win.
Oh, boy. They have an edge to them.
A lot of championships in row 4. Phi Kappa Psi with 7 championships. The Cutters with 12. Really stacked row. Sigma Chi there, they've also won. Sigma Chi last win in the race in the early 1990s.
Delta Tau Delta, our former champions last year. They're ready. They've reloaded. They may not have their top rider from last year, RJ Stewart, but they do have weapons they can use today.
And the experience and the confidence of winning the race.
Absolutely. That goes a long ways. They know what it feels like, and they want that feeling again.
AE Pi, you see them rounding out row 6, a couple championships in the 1980s.
And just so much that goes into having a team that can qualify. You mentioned that 33 teams entering in the race. There's more people that would like to be involved in it, but you've got to earn your way. to race in the little 500.
And we've got full fields in the women's and the men's race this year. I think there were 40 or so teams that tried to make this race, and you're right, Rich, only 33 make it. So it's, essentially a tough qualification run just to get in this race.
And, the people you visit with and you get their take on it, that, you spend that entire year to get to today to see what you're made of. And Hans, you made a great point yesterday. You said, look, it's not like you have another game after this one. This is what you get, and no matter how it goes, you know what, you got a whole year to either celebrate or sit and chew on it.
Yeah, these teams are so amped up. They're so ready. They've been training all year round. And we've got one more lap to go, and then this is going to be an epic start. Here we go with the green flag.
And the start of the 2013 Little 500, the 63rd edition, is underway at Armstrong Stadium.
If you see your pole team there, that's Matthew Green on the bike for Beta Theta Pi. He's a very strong, experienced rider out there just driving it right from the start. He's up on the tip of the saddle, just driving it hard. Black Key Bowles sitting in second. And in these first couple laps, just look for the top teams to try to dispense a lot of the lower qualifying teams out the back as Beta Theta Pi just drills it going across the start-finish line.
And then you have Sigma Pi Epsilon. 28 miles per hour is the average
Through the years, we've seen a number of different things at the start of races, and one lap in right now. The good news is so far we're clean.
We're clean and it's fast. We just heard Chuck Crabb on the overhead speaker say the first lap was 28 miles an hour. These guys are spinning the bike just about as fast as you can with that single speed gear.
I think the warm weather helps them a little bit, Hans. They've been kind of sitting inside all week. The sun comes out and the legs come out and freshen out today. These guys are rolling right now.
They're rolling. They're rolling a 34-second lap right here on lap 2. I like it. Keep it hot, stretch it out, keep it safe.
How long can you keep it this hot?
Well, if these top teams here keep working together, I think we're going to see the pace stay up until the top riders get off the bike and exchange. So I'd expect, start to slow down maybe after 10 laps, but then top teams should start exchanging maybe 15 to 20 laps in.
And we didn't talk a lot about qualifying position, but the guys know that Delta Tau Delta started back a couple rows. The Cutters also started back a couple rows. So, that's got to be a reason why Beta Theta Pi strung it out so hard from the start. But you see the white jersey sitting number 2 there. That's Kevin DePass from the Cutters. He's right where he needs to be.
You're right. Kevin's in a good position, but if you look closer, Delts, they're kind of stuck on the inside still. They're fast. 5th position back there, working their way up towards the front. But we just had our first crash. Fortunately, it was a solo crash off the back, but we'll see if Delts can work their way up to the front.
ATO went down, Hans.
Unfortunately. Yeah, that hurts. They've got a lot of work cut out for themselves today, and rebuilding year for our program.
Cutters taking the lead. Black Key Bowles sitting in second. A little teamwork.
Yeah, you see the pass kind of sift to the outside a little bit, maybe flick the elbow. Got a nice pull through there. That looks like Black Key Bowles, the team in the black. Black Key Bowles has got to be hungry, Hans. They've been in this race, like I said, since 2006, 2007, always in the top 10, but never quite on that top tier, with a 3rd place finish. What kind of things are you seeing out of that team, maybe in their pit, or what their strategy is for today?
Well, they're hungry, and they know what to do. I mean, there's a lot of teams here who are very well balanced today. When I look at the top 4 teams, there's 16 riders, and those 16 riders all rode in the top 30 of ITTs. That means that these teams are all very well balanced. Black Key Bowles especially, they had 4 riders in the top 16, so look for them to be queuing off of the Cutters, be queuing off of the Delts, be queuing off of Beta, but they also want to make their own moves. They want to make their own race at the end here so that they can try to get their first win for the program.
Looks like Phi Kappa Psi up there charging it from the front. Is that
Sigma Nu?
Sigma Nu, I'm sorry, Sigma Nu lead team. And something interesting, you see Mao Zhang, the yellow jersey, sitting back a little bit. So Delta Tau Delta, our defending champion, hasn't snuck up from that 5th row yet. A little bit of risk as they sit back, but we've seen them comfortable in that 4 or 5 position, trying to get a draft throughout the race.
As the defending champs, they took a little bit of a different path getting into this year's race by not doing a lot of the spring events, but focusing more on some of the road racing. Be curious to see how that translates over here to the track.
Absolutely, and their style's pretty typical, coached by Courtney Bishop. We often see the Bishop teams sitting back, getting a draft, waiting around till the end. I mean, we saw last year play out for them with RJ riding away with 12 laps to go, but they often don't like to put their nose in the wind too early in the race, so I kind of expected from their team, but you're right. We'll see how their training and practice and road racing translates onto the track today. They're kind of the wild card when I talked about it with other teams. We said they didn't do all the Spring Series events.
And now we've got our pile up on the back.
And you've got bikes on top of people on tops of bikes. You got mayhem over there in turn 3. That is the dreaded turn 3 that the IDS likes to write about. That is, and you expect that. You usually see that wreck between laps 5 and 10, so it doesn't really surprise us. It's how quickly teams can react, and I don't see any riders down on the track. Everybody's back up and on their bikes.
Yeah, and you know what that means is it's still a green flag. There's no yellow flag. That's really stretched things out. The pack actually surged when they saw that wreck, and they've distanced themselves.
Another look, gents.
Well, you see him wide, right? And then one of the guys wide, as people start to dive into the corner, essentially kind of going after the apex, somebody rubbed that front wheel.
That was an epic crash. I mean, the guy rolling over the back of the pack and just got ejected from his bike, but I'm happy to see everybody get up and walk away right now.
And those cinder songs, they don't feel good. I brushed them out of my legs, you know, in the showers at night, and there's going to be some cinder scars tonight and into the future.
Oh, it may look exciting and fun to watch on TV, but I can tell you that is not fun to experience. These cinders are not forgiving.
And you see the exchanges happening, and the teams blending themselves.
We are off and rolling in the 63rd edition of the Little 500 here in Bloomington. The men's race underway here at Armstrong Stadium.
To win the Little 500 would be just the icing on top of my college experience.
Not only an individual thing, but a team goal that kind of develops through your college years.
It would really incorporate being a part of an IU tradition and self-fulfillment.
To win the Little 500 for me would be the culmination of my college career. It would be a validation of the lifestyle of hard work and training that I've lived for the past year, and really just an excellent capstone to 4 great years here at Indiana University.
Solid start to the men's race, and that lead pack has found an opportunity when things got a little hectic with the crash in turn number 3, and they've taken advantage.
And we're seeing some sense out of the guys starting out. Here we are with 14 in the books. What's happening out there, folks at home, you know, Beta Theta Pi's trying to get away and get in for an exchange. The Cutters have been queuing off that. So Kevin DePass for the Cutters, Green on the bike for Beta Theta Pi. They've been queuing off each other. Nobody's been able to give it up yet and get the number 2 guy on.
No, I think it's great awareness by the riders to be able to feel that out and not have a specific lap that you have to go out and do an exchange on, because you don't want somebody to queue off of you. You kind of want to play it by ear and see when is a good time. When can I maybe sneak on somebody else's exchange and get out there and get a good gap.
And here you can see Black Key Bulls. They decided that was a good timing, right? So you see Black Key Bulls up out of the saddle, pedaling hard. I see a rider up in their pit. Looks like Black Key Bulls is going to do an exchange, and Cutters is trying to counter it just a little bit.
Coming around now, you're watching exchanges here.
Indeed they are, and they'll both exchange.
Oh, you got all 3 lined up. Here's the ballet on the front side. Oh,
and a bump.
You've got some contact between Beta Theta Pi and Black Key Bulls rider. That hurts him just a little bit, doesn't he? He's got a little bit of a gap to close now, the Beta rider does. The good thing is he's got the Cutters right there with him to help close that gap.
Tom Laser on the bike for Beta Theta Pi.
So you've got 3 teams coming in right now, and Black Key's pulled off the exchange. Beta Theta Pi being the last pit, just needs to get the head up and be looking forward, right?
Yeah, you got to keep your eyes forward. It gets dicey out there when you have everybody doing it at the same time, but that's what I was talking about, queuing off of one of each other. You want to use that to your advantage. But just like you said, keep your eyes forward and head on the track.
Oh, you see our defending champion now doing their first exchange. Delta Tau Delta on the backstretch. as you've got the main pack there, but there's Delts on the outside. They're doing a bike exchange. And Hans, you and I learned earlier, they like those bike exchanges because of the risk factor. They feel it takes a lot of the risk out of the equation, and in fact, each rider has their own seat set up as well.
Yeah, sometimes it could be a couple seconds slower, but they really feel like that's worth sacrificing a couple seconds for the safety and also to get the seat height dialed in and the handlebars. They really make the fine adjustments to set up each rider for the bike exactly how they want it. Because you only have 2 bikes on the track today, and you could have 4 riders of varying heights. It's hard to sometimes find that medium.
So, you know, you've got a lot of teams kind of sneaking up to the front right now, and you got some of our favorites sifting back just a little bit. Delta Tau Delta still comfortable in that 6-7 slot. Cutters and Beta Theta Pi are having to work themselves through a lot of the traffic in the pack.
Yeah, there is still a pretty good sizable pack here. I think there's got to be 16, 17 teams, it looks like, in this lead pack.
Theta Chi making a nice push at the start of this race, too.
You know, I saw Pi Kappa Phi up there. You know, Phi Delta Theta are 8 starting teams out on the front. And now you see Beta start to pull back up.
Yeah, I think Beta's going to try to ride at the front. I mean, they did use a lot of strength and energy last year. Maybe used a little too much, so look for them to get back in. Probably not lead as many laps this year, but they're very strong and they're knowledgeable veteran riders, so they want to stay up in front and stay safe. Everybody's kind of queuing off of each other and pointing, trying to find a good wheel that they want to ride. You kind of have to earn your spot up at the front of the race. Through practices, these riders are riding on the track from February till April every day. And when you practice with other teams that often, you kind of learn who are the top guys, who are the top teams on the track, and you kind of earn your place to be at the front of this race. If you see a team who's maybe qualified in the back of the race, they try to come up in the front, you'll get yelled at, you'll get told where to go. Nobody wants to ride behind somebody they don't know.
Sam Harbison on the bike for the Cutters. Dom Laser on for Beta Theta Pi. A lot of shifting right now at that front of the pack.
Yeah, you see a lot of teamwork, kind of as Hans has mentioned. These guys have earned a lot of respect, and so they're able to ride together pretty efficiently on the front. We see the twitch of the left elbow as the next guy pulls through. That's Phi Delta Theta.
Yeah, the guys up there, they have a lot of trust amongst each other. They've ridden collegiate bike races together. Some of them probably even race on the same bike teams during the summers. They're probably not doing a lot of talking in the front of the race here. They just know what to do right now. They're trying to string it out. It looks like rotating pace lines for the top 5 riders. They want to maintain that good positioning. But Delts, our former returning champion, are not willing to put their nose out of the wind just yet.
You know, one of the things
in the red. Go ahead, Jason.
One of the things about the Little 500, we talked earlier, they spent a lot of their time racing on the road in the spring. It doesn't always translate to the Little 500. There's a little bit more chaos in this pack. It has to do with no hand brakes, right? Relying on that coaster brake, the cinder track. There's a lot of there's more variables and kind of less control. So look for the Delts tactics to either pay off and they're rested in the pack, or it could potentially hurt them and get caught up in a wreck.
Is the Air Force, team number 9. In 21st, team 15, Alpha Epsilon Pi. 22nd.
Cutters like being up there.
They're not afraid to put their nose in the wind, as you say, Hans, and lead the race.
They're not. They're riding this race.
Oh, and another.
Just right over the handlebars.
26, team number 20.
Who is that? That's team number 19. That's Forrest, a dormitory that we have on campus. He just looked like he did an endo right over top of the handlebars.
Not the greatest exchange.
Team number 28, Alpha Phi Omega. 31st, team number 27, Delta Sigma Pi. 32nd is 33.
I got the bump right there.
And in 33rd, team number 27.
When you can see a lot of chaos. I talked about the groove a little bit earlier. He's well outside, almost into the pit.
Yes.
And there's a little bit of chaos in there as the exchanges has closed.
And we see Fiji taking off from the pack. They're looking to set up for a bike-to-bike exchange here on the front stretch.
Fiji right there in the orange.
You see him reach his arm out. All they have to do is execute a tag. They can't start moving until they tag that rider, and then they're off. And he sets him up perfectly.
And that gets the freshman Scott McClary on the bike.
Yeah, Phi Gamma Delta riding great. They haven't won the race since 1995. They've got a couple of strong brothers on the team this year. Charlie McClary and Scott McClary from Bloomington, Indiana, trying to regain their footprint as one of the best teams in the race.
But they're always up there, right? I mean, they're there almost every year. When you talk about teams in contention, I'd put them up there every year.
Oh, and you've got a little bit of fireworks right now as you see Beta Theta Pi coming in for an exchange.
Kappa Sigma is going to go as well. You saw the cutters chasing them down, trying not to let them get as much of a gap. Make them work a little bit harder to catch back up. You don't want to give anybody a free ride.
You know, Beta Theta Pi, a really balanced team in this year's race. They finished team pursuit. What was their time, Hans? They had a sub 850, which I think was the 5th fastest time in the history of the Little 500.
Yeah, you're right.
Not too far off the 1986 Cutters team, led by Jay Paulsgrove. Just a great, well-balanced team this year for Beta Theta Pi.
No, it was an incredible time, and when you look at the gap that they had to the second place team, it was almost half of a lap. I think it was 15 seconds. It's just incredible what time they were able to do, and that shows to the bond that they have amongst each other. When I talked to them this morning, they said that they didn't talk to each other once during that team pursuit ride. They have a silent understanding of what each other needs to do out on the track and what each other needs to do here on race day.
16 teams currently in the lead pack.
Lambda Chi Alpha K29 has worked its way up into the lead group. You just saw an exchange for Lambda Chi Alpha off the backstretch. That will change the standings.
See Phi Delta Theta up there. That's Rob Lee, who's a rookie on the bike for Phi Delta Theta. They're looking at Rob Lee to be one of their leaders in the future. You know, finishing the top 10, maybe 4th in ITTs. He's a guy they're going to rely on a lot in the future, and you see him getting a lot of experience right now early in the race. See Black Key Bowles up out of the saddle, just ripping it.
Those are positions 6 through 10.
Well, in about a month, all the seniors currently riding in their final Little 500 will leave the quarter-mile cinder track behind and begin their respective careers. But for the men and women of the Air Force team, life beyond graduation is a little different.
The exchange also for CSM cycling.
In addition to the teamwork and conditioning skills every rider develops throughout the season, Little 500 teams are also groups where leaders are born. For one men's and women's team, leadership has no greater application than in the United States Air Force.
As being captain for a Little 500 team for going on 2 years now, that you encounter, I guess, unique leadership experiences or troubles, whether they be with scheduling, but also you'll have personalities that sometimes, if the situation is tense, don't always get along. And so I think that having ROTC throughout the semester along with Little 5 adds kind of a unique aspect to your leadership development.
You have to balance each member of the team, know how much time they can commit or willing to commit, and help them grow with what you get from their commitment.
I think the Little 500 is something that you can take away from IU, no matter where you go, whether it's deployed or whether it's in a business setting, whatever it is that you do. But if you find somebody who's ridden or who's had that same experience, I think it'd be a really great thing.
One of our alumni riders is actually preparing to deploy. She's been through pilot training, she's just finishing up, and she's getting ready to go on her first deployment ever. So we keep in touch with her a lot and give her all the updates we can. I definitely feel like she'll take some of that Indiana pride and Little 500 memories with her. I would like to do the same. If I can get our lower classmen riders to just send me a couple words every now and then, it'll bring a smile to my face.
Nice piece. Very nice piece. There's the Air Force men and their pit, and a good crowd on hand today. You see everybody leaning over the rail, and a lot of shouting and chants and cheers from the houses. And what a day.
It's great to see that higher purpose there with the Air Force team, right?
Yeah.
They do so much. It's kind of each step is a building step as well, and I'm sure these experiences can help them in the future, as they said. But it's great to see that in the race. So much focus, I'm sure, on their side.
Beta Theta Pi pulling through.
They're keeping the pace pretty hot still. I've been looking at it about 36-second laps. I think average race speed is 24.5 miles an hour right now.
And we've got a really balanced race right now, folks at home. We've got Sigma Nu sitting in 5th place. We've got Kappa Sigma up there, one of our upstarts. I've never seen them start in the top 5. The team in gray, really kind of rounding out a balanced field right now with 16 teams on the lead lap.
And while we have a moment, let's go downstairs to Jill Savage.
Thanks, Rich. Standing next to Matt Blurg. And you're assistant coach with Delta Tau Delta. And I want to ask you about the starting position. And you guys have been kind of staying back a little bit in the pack. Is that the strategy, or is that just because you're getting a little boxed in right now?
Well, so I think we started 13th right inside of the 5th row, so we needed some time to move out and move up. Paul did an excellent job getting us into good position. We've got Phil on the bike right now, and I think they're right on point for the strategy that we have to execute. So.
Do you want to be moving up into that lead 5 or 6 spot at any point in the next few laps?
Absolutely. I think we're already there, but I think that we will always want to maintain that both for safety and for strategy.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Rich?
Thanks, Jill. Now, Hans, exactly what you said. For safety, to be with people that you know and trust and stay out of trouble.
Yeah, stay where you're familiar. I mean, stay around riders and jersey colors that you know. When you come out here as a team, you're prepared. You've looked at all the different jersey colors, and to me, you try to get like this color blindness. You block out certain jersey colors you just don't really want to pay attention to, right? And you focus on certain jersey colors, those that you want to target, like the cutters in white, like Beta in green. And you try to always mark them. You don't let them get any gaps. It's interesting how you want to focus in on only a certain few teams.
You see Beta Theta Pi right now with the gap, one of the teams Hans talked about. That's Eric Anderson. He's one of our Category 2 racers out there coming in for an exchange. It looks like a rider exchange.
And the cutters will do an exchange as well.
Yeah, and Beta's been quick all spring with that pole position. They had a good exchange there, nice gap.
And you see Delts coming off the front, they're going to do an exchange as well. That's what I'm talking about, where you want to cue off each other. You want to watch particular teams and know what they're doing and react to that.
Well, that's the experience that you guys have talked about, to have the ability to understand that it's not just about pedaling as fast as you can, but you have to understand how to race, and to be a good racer, you have to understand the whole of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, you're right. You need to gain that awareness, and that comes with just experience of riding and racing on this track. I remember my first year riding out here. When I think back on it, I remember about 2 minutes of the whole day, because it just goes by. It's all such a blur. I mean, with all the commotion going on in the stands and the race and the teams. At that point in your college career, you don't even know all these fraternity names, and it's incredible though what the awareness you can gain year over year. By senior year, if you do this race 4 times, you have like almost a 360-degree perspective on what's going on, and it really pays off.
Delta Upsilon got a 5-second penalty for impeding and just served that.
And impeding something we saw a little bit earlier. That's just kind of when you're doing an exchange and you get in the way of the pack, or you get in the way of another team doing an exchange. So that's going to hurt them. We've also got news, a couple teams are off the back. We got Air Force Cycling down now. We got CSF Cycling just trailing off the back of that pack.
Now the pack is we're keeping a good pace. I haven't seen any real lull. Now, if you look at the pack, you can tell that by the way that they go into the corners and the straightaways. And when you see the pack start to get 4 or 5 riders wide and too comfortable, that's when you can tell it's slowing down. But they've typically been keeping it about 3 riders wide, with the exception of teams coming around for exchanges.
Just 1 second difference between the top 10 teams.
So we are about to score our 40th lap.
What do you think? We've seen Beta out in the front a lot. Do you think they're doing too much work, or do you think that they're balanced enough that that's their strategy? They want to go out there and make the race theirs.
It's a 200-lap race, so you've really got to take your time, right? So here we are, 40 in. It just doesn't hurt to ride aggressively and ride up front. Somebody's got to kind of take that responsibility on. So when you're wearing the green jersey, I really feel like they're taking that responsibility on. If we see a late race attack, look for them to get some rest kind of later on between 100 and 150.
Well, we've had an exciting race, but it has not been flawless. We've had some people who have a few cinders in their legs.
So we have had another in-race penalty assessed by the chief steward.
This is just kind of a minor mishap down the start-finish line. I think our second one of the day here at turn 3 was a big pile-up.
Yeah. Oh.
Hansi called that the rider ejection off of the bike.
He was not holding on to any part of that bike. And then one here, right over the top of the handlebars after bumping another rider right there in the exchange. Another one that happened on the back stretch where it could be more of a circus with all of the exchanges going on.
But overall, we've still got our leaders up there. So we've had some wrecks, and that's one of the reasons that qualifications is so important. You know, you see the best team starting up front, and you see some of those teams that didn't qual so well perhaps get caught up in those wrecks in the back. Fortunately, everybody's okay. Haven't seen any serious injuries yet today.
Let's not forget a year ago, right around the 180 lap mark, it was the Cutters going down in a crash that really cost them an opportunity to try to win the race at the end. So, you know, we've seen crashes at the early part of the race with some lesser teams that, you know, add a little spice and excitement to this race, but we've also seen some mishaps late in the race that dictate the outcome.
And nobody caused that Cutters wreck. If you remember, Kevin DePass just went down on his own here out of turn 4. So in that case, he was riding in good position, but you throw in a variable like the cinders, like the wind, a little bit of fatigue, and sometimes bad things like that can happen. So it's a crapshoot in Little 500.
You can't predict when it's going to happen. And as a rider and a team, you just want to be prepared to react to situations. And what you saw when that happened was a reaction from the rest of the pack. They put in a hard effort when the Cutters crashed because they were waiting for any sort of cue to get an advantage on the 5-time consecutive champs, the Cutters. Lucas Miller and Kappa Sigma in the gray off the front of the pack.
Kappa Sigma just kind of plugging along there with a good starting spot. You know, I don't think that they've won the race. I'll do a fact check on that, but a team that I haven't seen, you know, but here they are. They're qualifying well. They're riding well. You really got to be happy if you're a Kappa Sigma rider or fan.
Absolutely. They're riding very smart. You can tell that by the way they're riding it towards the front of the race. They're doing a great job today. It's impressive. You know, it's worth talking about, I think, different roles that you have amongst the team. I mean, we've talked about sprinters before, but what do we? This is an almost bump right there, and people fanning out a little bit. That's one to make you gasp, but everybody rides through it.
Those are the teams that we were talking about. That was actually Kappa Sigs right there. You saw if you're not rubbing, you're not racing, right? And he held strong. He wasn't phased by that. He just bumped into the Sigma new rider on the outside, but was able to keep it upright.
And they used every inch of that track. You saw one of them ride into the gutter, which you're allowed to do as long as you're not advancing your position. So there's great awareness by everybody in this pack. They seem to be pretty comfortable riding amongst each other. I think these guys have been doing this for months in practice, and they look good out there.
You're right, Hans. You've got to use every inch, and if it means there's a wreck and you're going to go into the infield, at that point you're a cyclocross rider, man. You're into the infield. You're hopping off the bike. You're doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
These guys aren't afraid, and they're well versed in cycling.
What you don't want to do is crash on that gutter, though. That is the most. That's cement, Hans. Yeah, that doesn't bend at all. No, that does not.
And we've got a little bit of slope on the track as well, and that's why you have the gutter. At Bill Armstrong Stadium, it's not like a velodrome. There's not a lot of banking, but there is a little bit of banking. And so the gutter's there to collect a little bit of the runoff, but it's kind of one of the unique things, right? You've got the gutter in European racing, and here at the track, we've got our own gutter.
Yeah, you're right.
See Sigma New on the front. Haven't won the race since 1990, but they've been back here for a couple years with competitive teams, and they're just really coming out and riding a great race to start.
And I started to touch on before, I think it's worth talking about the different roles that there are amongst the team. You've got a sprinter. You've also got guys who are going to be, you could call them the workhorse, who come out here to just ride as many laps as they can to set up their sprinter at the end of the race. But what roles did you play in your races, Jason?
Well, I was trying to get to the finish in a lot of them. In summertime racing, I was also the sprinter. But out here, Hans, you're absolutely right. You pick guys that are going to eat up a lot of laps during the race. And then what you try to do is, if you have a sprinter like Kevin DePass or Will Craigie on Beta Theta Pi, maybe Paul Smith on Delta Tau Delta, that's somebody you want to rest throughout the race and let the other guys eat up a lot of the laps. And here we are with 47. This is a good time. You don't see a lot of action. They're trying to eat up laps and get huge gaps for their exchanges, as Beta Theta Pi is right now.
Craigie comes off in the exchange. Black Key Bulls will follow as well. It looks like Fiji is
going to cue off of that and get set up for one of their own exchanges.
Fiji's been riding really impressively so far, you know, with the McCleary brothers and Todd Cornelius in the pit. They've come out pretty aggressive, so you got to like the way the Phi Gams are riding.
Absolutely. They've got 3 veteran riders. Their rookie is the younger McCleary brother, and he's actually a junior national mountain bike champion. So I'd say he's not exactly your more typical rookie. He's got some experience under his belt.
Charlie McCleary on the bike for Fiji.
Kind of a dicey exchange there by our Spring Series champion, the Cutters. They almost got caught up in some riffraff in the pits. See Tim Nixon getting off the bike and Eric Brodell hopping on for the Cutters. This is actually going to be Eric's first set. Eric is a senior, and he was caught up in that basically a road accident out training in 2010. He broke his fork. He had I think in fact he snapped his femur. He was involved in a very serious wreck. The guy stuck it through, and here he is riding his first little 500. It's just a great story for Eric Brodell.
Delta Tau Delta in the yellow jersey.
I've really seen an amazing amount of these teams just queuing off of each other every time. Top 5, 6 teams are doing the exchange. They're all doing them at the same time every lap.
Absolutely. You just saw a Delta exchange. You saw Beta Theta Pi kind of mark them, right?
Yeah.
So when you're wearing the yellow jersey, not a lot flies. It's hard to hide. You got Beta Theta Pi just marking the Delt rider going into the exchange.
It's amazing how every team is marking one another. I've seen usually 1 or 2 teams that are marked, but right now it seems like 5, 6 teams are being marked, and they're really queuing off each other.
One of our big additions to our coverage this year here on Access TV is the scroll on the top where you get to keep track of all the teams and how they're doing. Now the way that's, every bike has a transponder on it that gets updated with each time you cross the start-finish line, so not able to obviously update as we've got another wipeout over there in turn number 1. But as you look, can keep things updated as we roll through that start-finish line, and then within the jockeying around that lap, we'll keep you up to date on that. But a good way to keep track of everybody and how they're doing in 1 through 33.
Yeah, the grid's a great feature for the folks at home, right? Because we're going to be talking about a lot of the top teams, but whether you're fighting for 15th or whether you're fighting for 25th, it means so much to these guys. So it's a great way to keep track of the entire field.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you got to assess your team, and you got to be realistic. And sometimes you're not always racing for the checkered flag. There's a race within a race out here too. The other teams are racing to stay on the lead lap for the first time ever in their team's history. I mean, there's all sorts of little accomplishments that every team has, which is so unique.
We saw 2 teams yesterday, the Lanzana and Crew Cycling, kind of move up from the middle of the pack to the upper echelon with top 5 finishes. We've seen Kappa Sigma talk about them here today on the men's side of the race. So it's fun to watch teams who start maybe at the back and move up to the middle, and then to the upper echelon, and within some of the exclusive teams in the race.
Yeah, in fact, we've got a name for the team that moves up the most throughout the race, and that's the Dixie Highway Award. So when you start far back and you advance the most number of positions, that's when you win that Dixie Highway Award. Grey Goat's an example. Team sitting in the top 10 right now. They started in position 18. So, you got to give them a lot of credit, right? Maybe didn't qual that well, maybe had a mishap during the qualifications, but able to move up. And Hans, you talk about a race within a race. You'll hear us mention the word sets. And when you think of a set, folks at home, remember these guys, they're on teams of 4. So they're not going to ride the whole race by themselves. They're breaking it down into 5 to 25 lap segments, and they're thinking about sets and how to balance out the equation with those 4 riders throughout the race.
Yeah, and the only factor to that is that you have to do 10 exchanges today. But you could do a set, and I've seen it done a set of 50 laps. If you may not have the most balanced team, you'll have those workhorse riders who want to go out and eat up as many laps as they can. But other riders, especially later in the race, will see short sets, fast sets, maybe 3, 4 laps. And what you're doing there is you're trying to make the other teams work hard. So you're setting a fast pace, trying to wear down some of the other riders. And you could be very strategic about that as a coach. You could try to look at the other teams and which riders are on the bike, knowing which ones you want to wear down.
Well, and the big question sometimes comes late in the race is when are you going to get your sprinter onto the bike and into the race? Are you going to do it with 7 laps to go? Are you going to do it with 5? Are you going to hold it? We've seen the Cutters do it with 2 laps to go and come out and win the race. I mean, there's a lot of ways to try to figure out which way you're going to try to close out this race and get the checkered flag.
That's absolutely right. And I've also seen, the dreaded late exchange, perhaps drop a chain or drop the bike. So many things that can happen late in the race. And so when you do that late exchange, it brings a lot of risk. And I think we're going to look at an exchange piece here.
Well, when it's done right, you called it a ballet. And when it's not done right, you call it a circus. And I think that's pretty accurate.
That's pretty accurate. And these teams on the front stretch, they're a little bit better at it. Here you see, that's that case, just not keeping your head up. You see a couple bike-to-bike exchanges, and you got some traction out there.
Here's a bike-to-bike exchange. You tag the other rider, get that bike up to speed, and then hop on and get back into the pack.
In betas, they've been fluid and smooth all day. Rider exchange, generally a little bit faster, handed right off perfectly.
And they've got a great place to do that at the end of the pit, straightaway here. Cutters with a bike-to-bike exchange. This is a live exchange here. Looks like it's going to put them right at the back of the pack. Not a bad place to be. Get a draft and start your next set out right.
And the pace picked up right there, Hans. Once we get back to action, you see it just strung out. Kevin DePass on the bike. He's got a lot of room to close right now. He's got a fast pace to close it on.
Let's check in with Jill.
And with Kevin Kirkham here with the Cutters assistant coach. Kevin just got on the bike. I know that you guys worked really well getting from the middle of the pack to the lead. Are you comfortable with that? Are you trying to push the pace right now?
It's a long race, and so we just want to be in really strong position, take our turn pulling, keep the pace high, and just wait until later in the race when the moment comes for us to attack.
58 laps into this, you're trying to settle in a little bit. So is that something that you just want the guys to get a little comfortable with the race right now?
Yeah, it's aggressive pack riding. We don't want to crash. No crashes. So we got to stay in the front. If you're back into backs where the adults are riding and so forth, you run a high risk of crashing. We want to ride that way. We want to ride like Cutters. So we got to be in the front. We got to push the pace and wait for our moment.
Thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome.
Rich?
There is an attitude that comes from the Cutters, and I would call that the attitude of a champion who's not afraid to take the lead.
Well, and with 12 wins, you got to think there's a little bit of history. Jim Kirkham, the colonel, down in the pit, he knows what's going on, and he's instructing these guys where they need to be. Kevin DePass with a big gap to close. Not a big gap, but he had a lot of strung out field to kind of get through, and he got through it quickly, and he's back right where the Cutters want to be.
I love that line. We want to ride like Cutters. I love his strategy. Being up front, I would agree, for sure. You want to be up front, you want to dictate, you want to create the chaos out there and make it your race. I always believe that, make the other teams ride your race and make them react to you gives you the best chance to win.
Cutters with the Elliott Stone Company sponsorship, and Jim and their coach Jason Fowler put a lot into it. And what Jim really means by that, when he says ride like Cutters, he means we're going to train hard throughout the entire year. We're going to treat each other like family. We're going to treat the other teams with respect. And when it comes race day, we're not going to leave anything on the track. We're going to put it all out there.
And they've proven that works.
Yes, it has through history. Winners of 5 of the last 6. Delta Tau Delta. Champions a year ago, and the Cutters, and you heard Jim say, no crashes. No crashes. That was their undoing when they tried to get 6 straight.
And you see Delts kind of moved up a little bit there. We all smiled when he made the Delts comment. They're playing with a little bit of danger, but they've ridden a smart race. They are sifting back a little bit, but you see them on third wheel right now. It adds a little bit of risk, but it worked for them last year. And Hans, you mentioned that they ride a little bit like the old Team Major Taylor teams that Courtney Bishop coached in the 2000s.
And if you remember that team, they were always there at the end. You may not talk about them throughout the race all the time. I think their strategy was, hey, forget about us for 199 laps, but remember our name when we're there on lap 200.
57.220.
And last year with the Delts, he started to get a gap, I think, with 15 laps to go. They had a strategy, an end game for a sprint, but it just played in their favor. I remember one of their riders was getting set up for a burn to do an exchange. He turned around to come into the pits, and they weren't ready. They weren't ready for him to do an exchange, so their coach was yelling, we don't have a bike ready, go around again. So he burned out an extra lap, came around, and had an even greater gap, and they just ran with it. They rode away, and they used that gap to take him to the checkered flag.
We've bunched up a bit. We now have 12 teams in the lead pack.
Yeah, you see Tom Laser out there for Beta Theta Pi with a nice set. He's riding. Kevin DePass sitting second for the Cutters. Delta Tau Delta, Sig Ep. You got Sigma Nu back there, 5 back. Kappa Sigma, Phi Delta Theta, Phi Gamma Delta. You just got a great, well-rounded out field right now.
You have at this point 15 teams.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, yesterday with the women's race, we saw, I believe, 9 to 10 teams on their final lap. This is the most competitive race I've ever seen, and we're seeing it again here today with the men's race. I think 12 teams in the lead pack. That's a huge pack. If we can get that to lap 200.
This year, in addition to competing on the track, Little 500 teams are competing off the track as well. Cycling for Scholarships is a great way to support both your favorite Little 500 teams as well as deserving.
Well, we have the big race weekend on Friday, Saturday, but Jason, as you're well aware, we're involved for all 4 years riding in this race. Hans, you as well. That so much of the positive part that comes out of this is the scholarships for working students, and we have again a number of people who have put together some really big time efforts.
Yeah, and this year there's something new with the Little 500. It's called Cycling Scholarships for Leaders, and essentially it's peer-to-peer fundraising. So each of the teams go out and they're trying to raise money for scholarships towards working students in a better cause. And some of the leaders in that this year, Kappa Delta Rho actually raised the most money. They went out there and raised the most money towards scholarships for working students. Kappa Alpha Theta was second, and Alpha Gamma Delta was third. So student riders doing more than just riding their bikes, but also out fundraising and doing philanthropy, and that's what this race is all about.
Good lessons to learn, to take with you for the rest of your career.
Yeah, not everybody when you're 18 to 22, you kind of get a chance to pick that up, right? And that's the great thing about Little 5. Not only are you learning teamwork, but you're learning kind of the bigger picture in life. And there's so much to be said for that. And we're just fortunate that great leaders like Bill Armstrong, Howdy Wilcox, Kurt Simic, Randy Rogers, Jonathan Purvis, Alex Enan have kept this race tradition alive, and we're able to enjoy it today.
What it is you get the sense this race is a rallying point around all the good that's going to happen for the next year. And everything likes to have a pinnacle event. You think of, in the fall, homecoming football games, but for the world of cycling and racing, and especially, for you guys here at IU, an intramural event that draws this type of crowd with this type of following, how do you not want to be part of this, not only for your 4 years here, but then throughout?
Yeah, it's great to come back every year and still be involved with the race. And, there's other ways for people to be leaders on this track here. There's Riders Council. It's a group of riders here on the track, veteran riders, who help out organize meetings, all the spring series events, and they train rookies. There's mandatory rookie week. If you want to ride on this track, you have to be taught by the veteran riders on how to do so.
Nick Sapp going to come in for Delta Tau Delta exchange. The defending champs sporting the yellow jersey. Philip Soika on the bike, senior psychology major.
Looks like you see Kappa Sigma setting up for an exchange. The Cutter rider was out, but he's not going to. Cutter chose not to do an exchange there. Didn't want to do it at the same time as Kappa Sigs. Timing wasn't good, but a smooth exchange for Kappa Sigma.
Take over now, Sigma Chi.
Hans mentioned Riders Council. That's just an essential part of the race that when you're watching at home, you don't see all those little things, but essentially we've got to have a safe, a sound race. And if you're thinking about riding next year and future years, think about something like Riders Council. It's a way to volunteer your time. You're a leader on the track, and you're coaching and you're training not just your team, but the rookie riders, as Hans mentioned, which makes for a great, safe race.
Beta Theta Pi and Black Key Bulls marking one another, and they'll both do the exchange.
It was really a great way to get to know other teams as well. You become friends with other riders and teams on the track. Not just your own team, but it's great. Everybody here racing has one thing in common. They love to bike. You may be in different houses, different teams, but every other day of the year besides today, besides race day, you can be friends.
You see a lot of that when I watch you and Jason and everybody interact with all the alums and people that you come back and see that how competitive it was back on race day, but how close everybody is now and how happy you are to see one another.
Absolutely. It's great to come back, and there's a following. You come back here every year and you can see your former teammates and other former guys you used to race against and reminisce. and talk about stories.
And then talk about race strategy.
Yeah.
And whether it's negative racing or who should take the lead or what should we do. And you know what? You hear that all over town.
Absolutely. You talk about it for 363 days a year. So what's going to happen next year? What's going to go on? Who's going to win? Who's going to be the strong team?
Howdy Wilcox's vision in 1951 was the foundation wasn't, they didn't really have a clear mission. They didn't have a clear vision. And so you think about what that vision is, and Hans, you talk about we're all back. You know, we all stay together. And the alumni are now supporting the university and giving money back to the university. You know, that's why, that's how Howdy Wilcox's original vision kind of came true. And so what a great vision for the IU Foundation and the Student Foundation to start with.
Now
We all feel it today.
Official standings for 70 laps scored. In the lead, team number 1.
Lap 73 out of 200 of the 63rd running men's edition of the Little 500 here at Armstrong Stadium.
Team number 2.
We've got some great racing. You know, we've got a lot of teams on the lead lap right now. We've got 12 teams up there. You got Sam Harbison on the bike for the Cutters. Kevin DePass just exchanged with him. You've got Black Key Bowl sitting tightly behind. You got team number 12, Sigma Chi, a team that I haven't talked about yet, sitting in that third slot. So you got a real balanced field here with 73 laps scored early in the race.
16, Dana Kai. We'll go 10 more places. In 11, team 29.
So you know, Hans talked about strategy, and that's part of the fun in it. So we were out scoping out the track earlier today and talking strategy with a lot of the teams, and the way it feels to me is that the Cutters have a couple cards they can play. One, I think, is that they have the fastest sprinter in the pack, the guy with the fastest twitch muscles that can close it off, and that's Kevin DePass. Beta Theta Pi is a very well-balanced team, a lot of team strength, right? So have one team pursuit, a lot of guys in the top in ITTs. So look for Beta Theta Pi, Delta Top Delta. They've got to come up with a card to play. Maybe they can take it out of the Cutters' hand and not have it come down to a sprint.
14 teams or so.
You know, you're right. The Cutters have the talent for a sprint. But if I'm another team, and I'm thinking that you've got to counterattack. You want to beat them there. But then again, if you're the Cutters and you think another team's going to do that, they want to counter that. They're going to want to go down and make their own race and make it aggressive.
And to the Cutters' disadvantage, the more teams there are in the lead lap, one, the harder it is to win the sprint, and second, to your point around attacks, then attacks can start coming from a couple different angles, right? Sig F can go, Sigma Nu can go, Delta Tau Delta, Beta Theta Pi. Yep. You've got a couple things, you got more things to deal with, so it is in the Cutters' advantage to start to weed out the field a little bit, so there's not 12 teams on the lead lap.
There's more variables, and you're right, and some of those are unknown. They're not sure how those other teams are going to respond. And you don't want that. You don't want that at the end of the race. You don't want to have that wild card.
Sigma Pi and Beta Theta Pi putting it down hard right now, as are the Black Key Bulls.
And speaking of attacks, right, Sam on the Cutters was out there kind of, you know, holding a little position. You saw a jump right there by Beta Theta Pi and Black Key Bulls, right? They had a chance to jump them a little bit. They did. They're backing off now, but the more times you do that during the race, the more it wears on the Cutters' legs.
That's exactly right. It's hard to respond to those all day.
It's a body blow. Doesn't look like a lot, but by the time you get down to 180, 185, 190, 195, maybe it's taken just enough out of somebody's legs.
Yep. And as a coach, you need to manage that within your riders. You need to gauge how much effort are your riders doing out there. Get them off the bike, get them on the trainer, get them some food, get them a drink, let them relax and recuperate a little bit, put in somebody fresh.
Kappa Sigma, Team 5.
And with Little 5, you know, you talk about the body blow. The body blow is on the quads, right, or the calf, and it could be a cramp late in the race while you're on the bike. It could happen, you know, while you're trying to hop on. It could be a mishap during the exchange, but when that fatigue starts to set in, the little things like exchanges start to mount. So, again, the aggressive racing that you see, if you can see it out of the other teams or anybody, right, you're starting to play your hand and you're starting to play into your advantage.
You're right, and that kind of goes along with what I've said before, is making your race. And when you stretch it out and you put in an effort like that, it fatigues the other riders, and like you said, things happen. They may lose a little control of their bike, and I think that you want to put in that effort and you want to create that confusion behind you, make people react to you. I think there's an advantage there. And we've seen that with that type of leadership from Beta all day long.
Eric Anderson, the fifth-year senior finance major in the green shirt on the bike.
And so Eric Anderson's had a good spring out here. He was 6th in ITTs in the finals and missing out. What we know about their team is we think William Craigie, I think he's a second-year or third-year rider on their team. That's their sprinter. So you got Eric Anderson right now trying to eat up some laps. William Craigie's sitting in the pit right now, staying rested, starting to flush out his legs on a trainer.
And Craigie's smart enough to know that some of the other guys on the track may be a little bit faster in a sprint. He told me that he's not going to lead out a sprint. He's going to be the guy to surprise the next rider. You know, whether it be the cutters with Kevin, he's not going to lead him out. He's going to make him, Kevin or someone, to do the work and try to surprise him at the end of the race.
And Craigie was a big guy. When we were down there kind of looking at him, right, he looked like a guy that could really throw the bike around in a sprint. So, you know, maybe to his advantage, he's not going to lead it out from the start-finish line, but you think of a guy like Craigie, maybe he's going to try to win it going into 3, or even something that we don't see that often, win it out of turn 4. But wait till late in the race to make his move.
Yeah, and turn 4 could be a factor today. I mean, with a slight wind, only 10-mile-an-hour wind coming down the backstretch, but if you're coming out of turn 3 and into turn 4, you use a little bit of that tailwind, push you to the finish.
Well, and look at this. Beta Theta Pi just really stringing out, getting a great gap for his teammate. They've got a rider out in the pit. You see Black Key Bulls countering. Black Key's also got a rider out in their pit, so we're going to see two exchanges down the front stretch.
The Cutters are not going to do the exchange. They're going to get waved on. It looked to me like that rider almost wanted to exchange, though.
Sam Harbison out there eating up some laps. I think he wanted...
Oh, and
accident.
Got a 3 now down.
Still racing.
No yellow flag. Still racing.
Sigma Chi, one of those
Fiji.
injured. Grave Go, also one of those injured. We're staying green. They've been up in contention.
And it really had nothing to do with the exchanges. I was kind of curious on that. Before I saw it, you see the bikes just floating around on their own.
Yeah.
Just looked like a rubber wheels where that front tire brushes the back tire of the rider in front of him and the guy goes down.
It was not Fiji in there, it was Grey Goat, excuse me. Yeah, and you see that, Jason, you see that happen towards the back of the pack more often. Sometimes they get a little bit loose in the cinders if they're moving out to the outside there. Something to watch out for.
Well, and Grey Goat was on the lead lap. That was team number 18, Grey Goat Cycling, getting caught up in the wreck.
Sigma Chi. In 4th, Team 16, Theta Chi. In 5th, Team 6, Sigma Nu.
You know, they haven't been lapped yet, but I think it's kind of over for Grey Goat just because of that wreck. And that's the thing about Little 500. You have to have a perfect race, typically, if you want to win out here. You can't have mechanical problems. You can't have any crashes. You have to have a little bit of luck on your side in order to win this race.
Team 7, Phi Gamma Delta. 13, Team
Phi Delta
29,
Theta.
Delta Chi. 14,
They come out of the seat there a little bit and push it.
15, Team 14.
And you've got a fresh Cutters rider on there. They did do an exchange. Tim Nixon not letting him get too big of a gap. The Phi Delta Theta, they're going to do a bike exchange. Bring on Rob Lee again from Phi Delta Theta.
Team 24,
Brandon Wise to hand it off.
Team number 11, Phi Kappa Psi. 21st, Team 22.
And Black Key Bulls with another exchange. So it kind of looks like Black Key Bulls is riding shorter sets right now.
23rd, Team 19.
And not a real good gap right there. So, you know, Black Key Bulls is one of our top 5 teams. A great spring, but they're kind of in the middle of the race, not riding exactly the way they'd like to.
Back down to the track. Here's Jill.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Charlie McClurry, and you're now just trying to stay warm and loose out there. But what have you seen on the track so far?
It's been moving around a lot. You know, all the burnouts, every single one of them is fast, especially on this front stretch. It's a good pace, a lot of action right now.
It's fun because your brother's actually out there riding for your team right now. Nice to have that sibling companion.
It's really nice. In training, you know, we get a little bit of brother rivalry, so it's cool. We're one of 2 brother sets in the Little 5 community right now. The DePass brothers, unfortunately, I don't believe Ryan's riding this today, but it's really cool having brothers out on the track.
85 laps into the race. We still have a long way to go. What's the strategy at this point in the race?
Just don't go down. Any crash can put you down real quick. Bad exchanges. It's all about staying in good position and staying away from the bad luck.
Thanks so much, Charlie.
No problem. Thank you.
Rich?
Nice work, Jill. Good little story there.
Yeah, as Charlie knows, each set matters. And each set, riding for position, not being too far back, but a good story between Charlie and his brother Scott.
You see him on the trainer in the pit. They're just trying to keep their legs moving because these guys, there's 4 riders, so there's quite a bit of a break between the times when you're riding in the race. And with this being only a 50-mile race and 4 guys, you're not doing that much riding, so you want to always stay warm and stay ready. You never know when your coach is going to need to call on you.
Stay warm, stay ready, and everybody Jill has spoken with down there, stay clean.
Yep, that's right. Stay clean. Keep those jerseys fresh of the cinders.
So you have in the lead. The Black Key Bulls had a little bit of a mechanical issue, we're being told, and so you talk about important people, not only your 4 riders and your coach, maybe the most important person on your staff right there, your mechanic.
And that's Isaac Neff for Black Key Bulls. He works in a bike shop up in Wisconsin and is a great cyclocross racer, so he's a great mechanic to have down there. I was wondering why the bike was coming in so often, why the sets were short. But one of the things about Little 5 is you've only got 2. So you've got one out there right now, and you've got one with a problem. Either he gets that fixed, or they're relying upon one seat height and one bike from here on out.
That must have been what was going on. They must have had a mechanical, brought the bike in, wheel it over to the infield and getting it fixed.
But you can see Black Key Bulls back in there. And Phi Gamma Delta, it kind of reminds me of the Phi Gam teams of old, riding on the front, liking to stomp out a lot of laps. They've got a lot of history with guys like Jim Lohman and Todd Cornelius. Charlie Kraus is down there behind their pit today. And the Phi Gams always come in fit, and they actually are not afraid to put their nose in the wind. And Phi Gams normally like to ride on the front, and it's great to see a team with so much history kind of back where they deserve, and that's on the front of the race.
You're right, and that's exactly what Charlie, their assistant coach today, told me before the race. They're going to ride up front. They're going to stay out of wrecks. They're doing just that. They're executing a perfect race in order to keep them in contention.
Lap 90 of the 63rd Little 500 bike race here at Armstrong Stadium. We'll be back to Indiana with more racing coming up.
Race day is a calm chaos. As soon as you step through the fence and you're on the infield, everything else doesn't exist anymore. It's only you and your teammates in the track.
Race day is the culmination of all of the trash talk and banter and competition that builds up throughout the year.
One day that you train every single day, work up towards, and it's just the time to see all your friends, all your family standing up behind you, supporting you.
It's sort of the culmination of all of your efforts and all of these thousands of miles and hundreds of hours of training that you've put in over the past 12 months and even years before.
Back to racing here at Armstrong Stadium. Rich Cellini, Jason Sonneborn, Hans Arneson, and Jill Savage down around the track. 63rd running of the Little 500, and a well-run race thus far, and a number of teams still in that lead pack.
Yeah, we see a pack of about 23 riders right there, but I believe only 11 are on the lead lap.
Yeah, and it's great. We've got some surprises. We've got some dark horses up there. We've got Theta Chi, Team 16 with the leaders. We got Team 12, Sigma Chi, up there, their last win in the 90s. Fiji's obviously riding well. Kappa Sigma, a surprise team. Team number 5, Sigma Nu, Sigma Phi Epsilon, team number 4. You got a great competitive race today. It's kind of looking like it reminds me a little bit of a 1999 kind of race. That was the year Sigma Phi Epsilon won. It was a big pack sprint finish, and we actually had a team Sig Eps who we didn't think was going to win. But they were able to shake it up. They had 4 strong guys. They had a good sprinter in Steve Kovac, and they won that race. You got a Sig Ep team today on the lead lap, and you got a big pack on a sunny day.
I remember a big pack my freshman year. I want to say there were 13 teams on the lead lap, sprinting at the end when John Grant won for Gafambi. He's the coach of Beta Theta Pi's team, called number 1 today in the green jersey. They've got the coaching experience for sure.
a large pack, if we get there, and look, we're only approaching the halfway point right now, but if we get down to the final handful of laps and there are still 8, 9, or 10 teams, would that favor one of the lesser teams who might have an opportunity and limit the Cutters' opportunity because you can get caught up in the wash with the number of teams? Because in years past, we've been down to just a handful of teams at the end of the race.
Well, some of those lesser teams, they may not be as familiar as what it's like, on the last lap, what it's like to be there. They're not that familiar with how to execute a strategy, how to execute a sprint. Some of these other teams have done this before. They've done it in practice. They've done it in other races. They've won races. They know the feeling and they want to do it again. So I've got to give the advantage to somebody like Kevin and the Cutters. I mean, there's a strong correlation between the winner of ITTs and the winner of the race. Since the year 2000, 11 of 13 of the individual time trial winner. That is a Spring Series event where you ride 4 laps around the track against the clock. 11 of the 13 riders since year 2000 have won ITTs and then the rider to win the race for them on lap 200.
So if you're fast in the ITTs, you're probably going to be fast at the end of the Little 500.
Statistics don't lie. 85%.
No, the numbers do not lie. Here's Jill.
Well, the Cutters were so excited when they finished 1-2 in the ITTs, but I spoke with Jim a little bit earlier today, and he was saying, listen, it's great that they finished 1 and 2, but once you get on the racetrack here today, it doesn't really matter, but it does, because the Cutters back in 2000 and 2007 also finished 1-2, and they went on to win the race, Rich.
Yeah, thanks, Jill, and they started a run at that point that, until last year and the wreck, Delta Tau able to come in and capture that yellow jersey and get their name on the trophy. You're right. I mean, that's part of it. But, you'd expect that from a coach to say that was then, this is now. But, and if you're on the outside just observing, you realize that those numbers do mean something.
Yeah, they absolutely do. In the strength of 2 is something that Jill noted, which is very well. So, earlier in the 2000s, the Cutters had Eric Young and Clayton Feldman, a great 1-2 combo. And in 2000, they had Chris Wojtowicz and John Carlson. So it's that ability to kind of cue off of each other. And when you bring a little bit of strength and not just the strongest rider, it kind of helps to make for a team effort.
Well, everybody only has one gear on their bike. Eric Young, as a man, had another gear.
He had another gear internally. He could push that gear to another level.
Oh, boy.
I mean, we saw him win 3 races in a row, I believe, in a sprint in a spectacular fashion. And he's gone on to do some amazing things in his post-Little 500 career.
Yeah, he really has. He rode the Amgen Tour California last year for Team Bissell, and this year he's riding for professional cycling team Optum. So Eric Young's kind of one of our great alumni, and it's great to see kind of guys back at it. I talked to him last night, and he said he's looking to make an Olympic team, and that's something that I remember from our 1970s Delta Chi teams. You had Wayne Stetton and you had Mark Dayton, a couple Olympians in the Little 500, and so he's just kind of looking to build on that Little 500 experience.
2 laps down. Your leader is 50.
Now, you're certainly happy for anybody who has, post Little 500 pro career, but this event and this weekend is pure sport. Let's not forget, as big as this is, and all the pageantry, and all the colors, and all the competition, officially, this is still an intramural event. But unlike any intramural event you're going to see anywhere else in the country, regardless of any sport, and there we've got a yard sale pile up.
Oh my goodness, and you've got carnage and cinders all over these jerseys on the front stretch. You've got Kappa Sigma down. They were on our lead lap.
And here we get a yellow flag. Jay, go ahead.
Well, it looks like some of our leaders made it through, but some of them did not. You've got Beta Theta Pi coming through, but Kappa Sigma's caught up.
5 to 6 teams involved in that accident.
You got Phi Delta Theta making it through in the Cutter SIGAPs.
Yeah, it looked like, let's see here, on the back stretch.
All the way across the track.
That gutter's a little bit painful. You saw people ended up there. Well, and it's just riding too wide. You know, it's like and of course, when you have a large peloton, they kind of group up, and it's not single file, and so you've got people out there in those exchange lanes.
You know, I got to wonder too. But you saw the team doing an exchange. They came out wide as well. I mean, there's possibility that they could get an impeding penalty for coming out too wide and causing that crash.
Back to green.
It looks like 8 of the maybe 8 teams are still in the front lead lap, but
definitely trimming it out a little bit, right? You know, so these guys got to be. You don't ever want to see a competitor go down, but as far as when you like your chances to win, you got to be excited about pulling through and escaping that wreck.
But this is an opportunity for those who made it through.
Oh, absolutely. You know, now you've got Kappa Sigma down. It's good to see them. You know, if you're a leader, you want to start to thin out the pack a little bit.
Yeah, it takes away a couple of those variables, those unknowns. The fewer teams you can have at the end, the fewer you have to race against.
Sigma Pi, Black Key Bulls, Beta Theta Pi, Fiji, the Cutters.
We're at lap 106, and you know, we've talked about teams wanting to be aggressive. I talked to a couple earlier that said they thought there would only be 4 to 6 teams by lap 140. So if that's the case, I would expect some moves to be made in the next 20 laps. We just saw a 10-second penalty served by that team. They did get, I believe, an impeding penalty for causing the wreck on the backstretch, which was Delta Upsilon.
Delta Upsilon at Fraternity on 3rd Street. It's good to see the officials with the race under control a little bit. If you're out too far on the track and you're impeding on other teams, you're going to be in that box.
So Hans was right on that as far as that exchange goes, just too far out into the middle of the track, causing the entire wreck.
Yeah, and you don't see that call a lot, but if you see somebody go down, that definitely gives our chief stewards an opportunity to wave that flag and pull you into the penalty box. That's a hard one to serve, 10 seconds.
It's a hard one to serve, but it's really unfortunate for those guys who are involved in the wreck because of that. I mean, you saw they did nothing wrong on the bike. It was not their fault, so it's unfortunate to see that the race is gone.
Lack of track awareness. We've said it before, we've talked about it. That's, you know, what it was, and you think the difference of 2 or 3 feet of letting yourself drift out, and right there everybody else is thinking there's a lane to ride through, and then all of a sudden you're standing there and it's gone, and we see one bike hit into the next, and then you end up with the yard sale.
Yeah, you're right. You didn't see the teams at the front of the race go down. You saw those teams who were maybe not as aware, drifting back, drifting out wide, getting wrapped up in it.
And you've got Eric Brodell coming in for an exchange for the Cutters now, handing off to Sam Harbison. Good effort there by Brodell.
Great exchange.
You know, and you just got to be pleased. If you're that rider getting on the bike, Sam Harbison, you got to be thankful to your teammate setting you up, getting a gap so you can connect back up with the peloton and the leaders.
And you see Fiji.
Yeah, making a move around turn 3.
They watched what Cutters did, and they're going to exchange the bike, do a bike-to-bike exchange themselves. No, they're not.
And you've got to use an old line from one of my colleagues, Dylan Casey, and you see the fakie from Phi Gamma Delta. The Phi Gams are going for it.
Charlie McClary on the bike. They fake the exchange and now get about a quarter of a lap out in front of the pack.
And I don't see the reaction from the pack either. They haven't picked up on it. The Cutters are just starting to move to the front, wondering, hey guys, are we going to go catch Fiji right now? Is anybody going to come with me? Because they've got a quarter of a lap lead all of a sudden.
And it's difficult to do it on your own, as you know, Hans, you've done it. But in general, if they had another team with them, you know, if somebody else could attack now and join the Phi Gams, it would help their chances a lot. Right now, they're essentially dangling with about a half-lap lead, but they're going to continue going, folks.
Yeah,
Phi Gams are showing some aggression.
You're right, and they didn't look back. They didn't look back at the pack wanting to get in. They looked ahead, and if you look ahead, there's a small pack forming. That's what they're racing for. If they can catch up to that pack, that gives them a draft. They can sit up. This rider here is putting in a time trial type effort, but he can sit up, take a breather, relax, you know, get his composure, and then he can probably start to leapfrog and catch other small packs along the way.
Beta Theta Pi gonna make a push right now, as are the Black Key Bulls. But it's Fiji out in front trying to catch up to the pack.
He should be able to catch the second pack now because these are lapped riders. They're not going as fast as the leaders. If he can keep this effort up, I think you give him one more lap. If he can sustain this pace, he'll be able to catch that. And that is going to be so big because then you get that break, you get that rest.
And this is Matthew Andrus out there. This is his third race, so he's got all kinds of experience. He knows, if he can catch that group up ahead, he's going to get a little chance to rest. The leaders in the main group are having to react. We got word from the Cutters pit. Fowler's up. He's giving the charge to the Cutters. Now's the time to close. But guys, there's about a straightaway lead right now that the Phi Games have got. They've caught that group that's of lapped riders.
Well, what I don't like here, I'm actually seeing Fiji's queuing up for an exchange in their pit. Now, if I'm their coach, I would have told the rider on the bike to sit and catch his breath. Take advantage of this pack that you just caught up to. You just worked so hard to get, and take a little bit of a breather and then put in another effort to get a burn. But they're coming out.
Indeed, they are going to do the exchange. Fiji handed off, Scott McClary back on the bike. And with that, it's going to be an easy catch for the Cutters and Beta Theta Pi.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Hans. We call it recovery, right? So you sit, you eat up five laps or so, and now all of a sudden your heart rate starts to come down a little bit. You're a little bit more comfortable, and then you can go on the attack again and bring in the exchange. Could have been a little bit of a mental error there by the Fijis.
I think it may have been because we saw the Cutters catch him right away, and every time you do an exchange, you're losing time on the track. It's going to cost you, I think, about 5 seconds when you do an exchange. Good effort though by Fiji to keep it aggressive. I like that.
Yeah, Fiji, Cutters, Beta Theta Pi.
Throwing the fireworks around lap 115, letting it go, showing some panache out there on the track. The Phi Gams playing their cards, and we might see it from them again.
We may see it from another team too. You got to watch out for the counter attack right now after these other teams have spent a lot of energy trying to catch Fiji.
We'll be watching for
there you go. You see Sig Ep.
Potentially. Also the same for final
Sig Ep got a team out there for the exchange.
Double exchange here just past the
showing a lot of pop in those legs right now. Sig Ep is.
Phi Delts do the exchange as well.
Sig Ep, Phi Delta Theta, and the Cutters, the Fijis, Black Cables, those are your top 5. Beta Theta Pi at 6.
And you can tell that now that what happens a lot is it's a race of trends and momentum, and you see kind of the pendulum swing a little bit. And right now it's swung to a slower pace. So if Fiji's caused a little bit of fireworks, Sig Ep had a gap there. They didn't go with it. They're settling back into the pack. Now teams are starting to recover a little bit.
So what we end up with is one large pack, but not everybody on the lead lap.
Yep. I've seen 2 coaches right on the whiteboards with Fiji here and Phi-Side next to them. They both said settle in and big set. They want to eat up some laps, it seems like, after doing that attack.
Delta Tau Delta. They'll look for an exchange on the backside, so they'll burn it down the back stretch.
Delta doing their signature bike exchange, handing it off so everyone gets specialized seat heights.
Letting the back in.
And I don't see
Paul
Delts
Smith
going.
on the bike. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, I don't see Delts going anywhere at that point either.
No.
Even though they had a great gap, but the groups bunched back together. And Hans, you noted it. What we saw in the Phi Gam attack was that some lap teams were up ahead, and it gave the Phi Gam riders somebody to shoot for. Right now, the group's all back together out there.
And why you do that, Jason, what the Delts did there with the burnout, it's trying to set up the next rider. You see, if you're coming off of the bike, you're about to go rest and recover. So why not put in a little extra effort to set up your teammate who's coming in fresh so that they don't have to work. They can come in relaxed and composed, ride a long set, ride a fast set. It's strategy there.
Well, we've had a fantastic afternoon here thus far, and you know what? The men had a lot to live up to because we did the 26th running of the women's Little 5 yesterday, and we talked about this. Do you ever remember a better women's race? That was not only fantastic race-wise, strategy-wise, but we also had the fantastic finish.
I don't just remember a better women's race. I haven't seen a Little 500 that exciting in my history. In all the years I've done this, it's my 12th year calling the race. That was incredible with Kappa Gamma going for it, 3 or 4 laps out, dangling out there, Thetis having to close, and then Delta Gamma making the opportune move and just jumping them right at the end with the pop.
And I thought it was very well coached. I mean, we've heard from Pam before that she teaches the riders how to be their own coach out there on race day. I mean, you saw that. They had great awareness.
We've heard from Pam before. We're going to hear from her again. Here's Jill.
Thank you so much, Rich. Pam, yesterday, take me through the emotion of the day. It was your second year coaching Delta Gamma and your second win.
Yeah, you know, there's a little bit more pressure going on when you won the previous year, and you know what it's like to win, and you don't want to feel anything except that. But it was awesome. The girls all rode fantastic.
We heard so many times that people thought it was one of the best women's races that they'd ever seen. Do you agree with that? Do you think it was one of the best?
Well, I'm a little bit biased because we won, so obviously I think it was one of the best. But that was neat. You know, the win made it interesting, made it a big group on the lead pack. People were going at it all day. It was safe. Yeah, it was a good race.
Casey, did you know that she had it in her at the end once again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Casey's first set, at one point Teeter was kind of up, and she flew out and around and got right on Teeter's wheel. And I told her after that, I'm like, Casey, this is your day today. She was on.
What are your thoughts so far on the men's race today? There have been a couple more crashes today.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, just crashed right now. Yeah, turn right here. They keep swinging really wide, and it's made it really sketchy, but it's neat because it's kind of dwindled down to the powerhouses and getting all the other teams kind of out of there.
Thanks so much. Rich, back up to you.
Thanks, Jill. Well, another yellow flag out right now, but congratulations to Pam Lobig and had her sister on the team as well, Medicis, and back-to-back Little 5 championships. And another look.
I'm not sure what happened there. It seemed like maybe he rubbed wheels with the rider in front of him. But
well, that's I think that's Team 15. I'm looking for confirmation on that, but that's Sigma Chi, who was on our lead lap. Or no, I'm sorry, 15's AE Pi. AE Pi caused that.
It's not fun when you've got riders coming over the top of you. And their bikes are all tangled up. Sometimes they're hard to get apart.
Get your horns locked, Hans.
Yeah.
What can you do? Do a little tango down there. You know, you kind of got to get with your partner and figure out where you're going to go. Get those bikes.
You always see something new every year at the Little 5, something you haven't seen before.
That's what's exciting about every race every year.
Well, it builds throughout the year. And you know, you get into the world's greatest college weekend and what comes with it. And then this, you know, one of the pinnacle events of the entire weekend. And now we're back to green and racing again. Lap 124.
Back to green, and saw cutters seem to be looking out across the track, not really noticing that green flag, but they found themselves further back in the pack now than they've been all day. Only in 5th or 6th position, but
see a Sigma Nu exchange coming in there. They're kind of that unique pit spot right out of turn 4. Sigma Nu riding a great race so far, team number 6.
So there's the change. Team 4, Sigma Chi Epsilon.
You know, it is kind of a tough pit spot when you can't get a gap down a front stretch, and it's Sigma Nu in that position. They've got to get that gap whipping around turn 3, turn 4. So a bit of a challenge there in their pit location, but riding a great race is Sigma Nu.
yeah, I've been in that pit position before, and you got to swing wide out of turn 4, come in. It is difficult. You're still turning while you're trying to make the exchange almost.
At the point in the race where people are content to stay with the leaders and churn through some laps.
I think there are a number of teams, yes, that's correct. They're just happy to be here. Their race is going to be at the end if they have an end game. It's going to be at the last lap to try to mix it up. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple other teams, especially Beta. I'm still waiting to see if they have some serious attacks that they want to throw down before the end of the race.
Right Cycling Team 31.
Well, we've seen it today, and We'll see it through the years moving forward, but every rider at one time or another will get an intimate introduction to the track here at Bill Armstrong Stadium. And one man has been in charge with its care for over 3 decades.
Springtime in Bloomington, a time when the cold snap of winter breaks, beckoning in track time at Bill Armstrong Stadium. And it's here where more than 200 riders will spend the following months preparing for race day scenarios, time and time again. But what about the track itself? For the past 32 years, no one has known it better than the track whisperer, Wally Hansford.
Well, 40 years ago, I got out of high school, came to Bloomington, and I got into the building and grounds department over at athletics. Spent 20 wonderful years working for Coach Mallory, Coach Corso, and of course Coach Knight, which was intense but interesting. For lack of a better term, I thought this would be fun, just fun, and it has been. It's a challenge. What we have to deal with is freezing and thawing, and that's every year because we start in February. The track's hard, sun comes out, it thaws. And because it's a cinder track, all the moisture comes to the top, and then when it starts to dry out, it settles back to the bottom, and then we have to drag it and roll it, put 10,000 pounds on it, and try to compact it so they can ride on it.
Today marks the end of Wally's 32 years caring for an unassuming track in southern Indiana. And as he looks ahead to retirement, the Little 500 will never be too far away.
Well, I'm going to retire from Indiana University, and this is something I do 3 months out of the year. And this is where I have my fun. It's the people, it's the excitement, the challenge, and I'm going to miss it, but I'm not really going to go away. I still live here in Bloomington, and I'll still come around.
A lot of history on this track from the days of old to now here at Bill Armstrong Stadium.
Yeah, and one of the things that's consistent, they used to race on the 10th Street track where the Arboretum is today, the cinders. You know, so Wally has an intimate look at the cinders throughout the spring, and in fact, he's been here, it looks like, for every race in Bill Armstrong Stadium since it opened in 1981.
Oh, that's really cool, and he's done a great job today. His last day preparing the track. It's in great condition, super fast, I think we've seen so far. Well done, Wally.
Yeah, we thank Wally. Yeah. One year during qualifications, I wrecked, and essentially Wally came out and rolled the track in between my qualification runs. And so our second set we lined up and we got I think we either pulled first or second. But without Wally, might not have happened. So
no, he does a great job.
And it's awesome to say, you know, this is the fun he was looking for, and he's going to be back. He's really part of the family and no different from the riders or the alumni.
Yeah.
Watching those exchanges will give you the 139.
We asked him what he was going to do since he doesn't have to worry about, you know, rolling the track and the thaw and the rest of it. And you saw a little bit of his personality right there in that piece while he said he's going to do a lot of fishing, maybe not a lot of catching.
Third, team number 10 recovered. Fourth, team number 4, Simplify Upsilon.
And that's what we're hoping to see here in Little 5. Now that we're at 132 scored, we're hoping to see some lines in the water. You know, you want to see some attacks and some more fireworks. 5 games mixed it up early. You know, it's a question, is a team like Sigma Nu, is Theta Chi, is Beta Theta Pi ready to go? You know, when are these teams going to start mixing it up? I think we're starting to get down to the right time in the race to see it happen.
Well, we saw that yesterday in the women's race, that some people had to make some moves, because if you were going to sit back and wait for DG, put dudes on the bike at the end, then she was going to be the best sprinter in the field. So even though you got caught, you had to make your move at some point to try to force the issue.
Yeah, and I like that. You got to think, what are your best chances to win as a team? What are your strengths? Who do you have, and how do you match up against the other teams? So I would think we've got to see some aggressive aggressive riding. Because some of these teams, their best chance is not in a sprint against Kevin DePass.
No, you don't want to face the Cutters at the end of the sprint. And there wasn't one team that we visited with down on the track that said, you know, we're fine coming down to the end to do a sprint against the Cutters. Nobody went in that direction.
No, you're right. Everybody said that the Cutters were their #1 target on this track.
A lot of years you see a parallel between the women's race and the men's race. Yesterday you saw Kappa Kappa Gamma in green go for it 3 or 4 laps out. Today you see Beta Theta Pi in green right now on the attack, and they're a team that I picked kind of late in the race to try something. They've got something up their sleeves, not leaving it to the Cutters and their sprinter Kevin DePass.
That's a good point. We'll see if today, unlike yesterday with Kappa, see if Beta can bring that attack all the way to lap 200.
Beta going to come in for the exchange, and the Cutters will mark them and do the same.
What do you know? Delts are going to do an exchange as well.
That's the benefit of being on the back stretch. They're able to cue, kind of see what's ahead. You saw Betas and Cutters come in on the front stretch. Delts cues right off of them.
That's a good point. I don't remember when I was racing many of the top teams choosing that pit location, but it is proving to be pretty effective. You can look at what the teams are doing on the back stretch and then use their burnouts to start one of your own.
I like it. Here comes the Delts.
Black Key Bulls, Zigap in red.
The yellow jersey of the defending champion. The Cutters on the outside coming up, the white jersey.
Lap 137 out of 200 of the 63rd running of the Little 500.
We'll be right back with more of the 63rd running of the Little 500 on Access TV.
The Little 500 has prepared me for life after graduation by giving me the strength and discipline to push through any barrier, both physical and mental, and that's going to serve me well in the business world and beyond.
By setting a regimen of what it takes to accomplish your goals.
Simply being able to manage and work with a team and be able to motivate each other.
Teaching me time management and, you know, how to feel part of something that's bigger than yourself and just becoming one with a larger community.
Traditions here in Bloomington, 2013 Little 500 from Bill Armstrong Stadium. Rich Cellini, Jason Sonneborn, Hans Arneson, and Jill Savage, and another mishap on the track.
It's another example of an exchange coming out too wide on the track and causing another wreck in the backstretch.
Yeah, the AE Pies with I can't recall, did they have the impeding call earlier? That looks like they're a little bit at risk there. They're coached by Aaron Pilling and Lyle Feinberg.
We have our 140 laps.
Some of the best granola and food you can get in town. Lyle's Stores, Scholars Inn Bakehouse, official provider of granola for the Colts and the Access TV television crew. Scholars Inn and Bakehouse here in town. I told Lyle I'd say that. So.
143 out of 200.
When
the pack and the people who at the start of the race we thought would be in the thick of it have been.
Oh yeah, you've seen a great race. You see Sigma Phi Epsilon now getting in a burn. Cutters are still there. Beta Theta Pi.
And then 1 lap down is 10. Kappa Sigma, team number 5.
And this Sig Ep team really riding well. I don't know a lot about them. They were off campus for a little while. Sig Ep's last win in '99, and then they've had some success of late. Outside of the top 10 success anyway, 15, 14, and 12. So really kind of making their surge back into the race are the Sig Eps, the team in red.
Drew Quello on the bike.
Team 11, 16, Del Upsilon, team 23.
Another team that's up there is Theta Chi. They're surprising today and riding a great race, staying up with the leaders.
In 19, Joel, team 25. In 20, Air Force, team number 9.
Looks like Fidelt on the front. We mentioned placed second 3 years in a row. Talking to their coach this morning, he said they will do anything to not play second again this year.
even third place if it has to. No.
Well, this is a new group. They had the previous group who were competing year in and year out, coming up just short. But this, this will be a new crew, and I thought he made a really good point, saying that, with the team we had prior, who had been so close, that you end up finishing second in the Little 500, and you're so disappointed. He said, I jokingly say any place but second. He's like, but whatever we end up doing this year with this team and how new it is, if we can finish, in the upper, 2, 3, 4, 5, we'd be really proud of what we've done.
They would, and he said they have a few less bullets in the gun this year, so they're going to ride a bit more conservatively, which they've been doing, kind of doing less work, but they did a great exchange there. They put their next rider in the front of the pack. He can slip right back in and find a great position. So who knows? They may be another wild card at the end of the race if they're still in it.
Black Key Bulls now going to jet out to the front.
Yeah, we've seen some good Fidel teams of late. They had that mishap where they exchanged on 199 a couple of years ago, and I know that that's something that tormented them, that they've learned from, and have some real competitive teams.
Grant Powell on the bike now for Black Key Bulls. Gutters in the white jersey taking the lead. Now they'll let it go to Fidel.
Yeah, we've only got 2 packs. There's one big pack with some lap teams and riders, and there's a small pack here they're about to catch. And then they'll almost be all back together.
We talked a lot about the Fidels today, and for more on that, here's Jill Savage.
Rich, before the race started, we talked with Coach Brian Drumey, and he said, listen, we finished in second place last year. We finished in second place the year before and the year before that. We are through being the runners-up in this race. They told me that they just want to stay out of trouble, and they said basically survive to lap 175 and be in a position to sprint it out in the end, and they are certainly doing that right now.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's a good thought. And then, we've talked about people trying to stay clean, trying to get there, and then figure out at what point are you going to, unload, and give everything you have, and not have any, so many coaches said the last thing you want is a fresh rider at the end of the race. You want everybody to have, used every bit of energy they have to try to win this race.
And Phi Delta Theta's got a history of that. They traditionally have not won a sprint. In 2001, they won off the front. In 1996, they started their exchanges, or they started their breakaway around like lap 188 or lap 190. They traditionally are not a sprinting team, but look for them to try to mix it up towards the end and be really aggressive. Try to go for that bride spot and not always be the bridesmaid, right?
Black Key Bulls.
Beta Theta Pi. Cutters, Fiji. On lap 150 out of 200.
You see those 2 riders talking to each other. What do you think they're saying, Jason?
At this point in time, they're not charging too hard, right? So trying to keep a safe race generally. We talk a lot about pulling out there, that rider in that point spot, but generally where you really like to be is maybe second or third, a couple wheels back. So it's a little bit of a mind game at times, right? Trying to talk your buddy next to you into, hey, step up and let's pick up the pace a little bit. It's starting to bunch up. I don't feel as comfortable right now.
Yeah, and you could tell the Delts were not comfortable. They took advantage of the slow pace right there to do an exchange of their own.
Beta queuing off that Phi Delts. What happens when it starts to get in a big pack like that? I used to get a little bit nervous, right? Because you got teams that you wouldn't expect to be around, and now all of a sudden you're 4 or 5 wide. So it's like, how do we pick this up and get some of those teams off the back?
Yeah, I agree. I always got really nervous when it started to slow down, because then teams from the back start to creep up front, and you don't want them to be there. There's things that happen that can scare you out there. So I would always try to jump on the bike and just increase the pace for half a lap, just to string it out again and make it a little bit safer.
Kevin DePass back on the bike. And we're at lap 152 out of 200. And you talk so much about how this is an individual sport, and you're trying to win, but interesting part of racing is how much you guys do end up working together throughout the race. And here's an example. Neck and neck. A little conversing on the quarter-mile cinder track.
My favorite memory from the Little 500 was in 2010 when I was a freshman helping out our team of predominantly seniors. And they had to stop the race around lap 100 because of this torrential downpour that just came out of nowhere.
All the endless hours of training, although they can be rigorous and difficult, there's a lot of laughs and memories that come with it.
My rookie year winning rookie missing out at the end of rookie week, I had that first taste of victory and I've been chasing it ever since.
Standing on the podium with my teammates around me and knowing that we accomplished something as a group that was bigger than ourselves.
10th to the second between first and ninth.
Back to racing here in Bloomington.
Yeah, and you see a little bit of history there in turn one. You see Mike Howard, our chief steward. He's been doing this for a number of years, keeping the race safe. And you see his predecessor, not quite there, but just to his right is Jonathan Purvis, another former Dodge rider, IUSF director. He's going to take over that role in the future, but a lot of history and a lot of race knowledge up there in that booth. The stewards and the race judges help to keep the race safe.
Seen a little more aggressive riding, but no matter how aggressive any team has gone out, the Cutters have always been able to manage to stay right there. We're not going to let anybody get too far away from them.
That's great. I credit the coaching. I mean, in preparation, telling your guys where to be at all times. They know how to ride. They know how to ride this race, be smart, be aware, be attentive, cue off of the right teams.
Yeah, you know, and a team, I honestly don't know the Sigma Nu coach personally, but you know, then you got teams like Sigma Nu, right, who haven't been up there in the top 5, top 10 lately, and they're riding a great race. So you've got so many things going on. You got Wright Fowler and Kirkham on the Cutter side doing a great job with their team, Beta Theta Pi, but you've got some teams just, they're able to sneak up right now. Yeah, you've got a huge group.
You're right. I mean, Sigma Nu has 4 senior riders. They have 8 years of Little 5 experience among 3 of their riders. They are a veteran team. They've seen this, they've been here and seen this race before. And that's actually one of the teams that the Cutters mentioned to me this morning as maybe a wild card threat at the end of the race. But they want to eliminate that possibility and eliminate Sigma Nu before that.
Yeah, and you see the exchange in the Sigma Nu pit. That's a tough spot coming out of turn 4. Didn't really make an impact, but he was surfing on top of the top tube there.
It was clean.
It was clean. He'll feel it. He'll feel it next time he gets on, though.
He'll feel it. Yeah. They made a clean exchange, which is the most important thing. The rider getting on the bike was able to do that, but that's not the prettiest way to get off a bike.
You know, right now, gentlemen, I'm starting to feel a little bit of the calm before you know that the storm is going to blow in here on this track.
We do.
Lap 161, and people are starting to do doing a little bit of movement right now, but you can tell that some people are going to start doing some things. While we have a moment, let's check in again with Jill.
Thanks so much. Here with John Grant, Beta Theta Pi head coach. You have been doing a lot of the work up front, leading the pack. We're 3/4 of the way done. What do you want to see from your team here on out?
Well, we've been staying out of trouble. You got to stay up front, avoid some of the big wrecks that have happened today. You also want to conserve energy, though. You want to let the other strong teams take their pulls and do their share of the work.
Who do you want to see on the bike at the end, and how many laps do you ideally want him to race?
Well, there's strong teams out there. You know, the Cutters have got some good sprinters, so we'd like to make a move and not have it come down to that. You know, Craigie's shown to be a very good sprinter for us. If it does come down to that, he'll be out there, but you know, there's still plenty of racing left. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rich?
42 minutes, 55.546.
Well said.
Yeah, and with 4 riders strong, you know, I talked about that 99 race, you know, and a guy like Craigie, I mean, what can happen? You never quite know. Beta Theta Pi, again, Grant's got them kind of well schooled. They've got Beta Theta Pi has 1 win under the belts in 1964, and I think we're going to see some fireworks start to light here late in the race.
Yeah, they're ready. They crashed last year at lap 194. They were really close to having to be able to show their end game then, but they're fired up. And I asked the riders this morning, what would you do differently this year? And he said, I'm going to look over my shoulder and see how the other teams are doing behind me because I'm going to be out front. So I'm looking forward to some fireworks as well. I think they've got something up their sleeve, and I hope we can see them show it here shortly.
Team 23, 16, flank down the side, Team 11, 17, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Team 14, 18,
See Phi Delta Theta pull through there. Really strong day out of Phi Delta Theta.
And then 20 of Turquoise, Team 9.
They've been doing their fair share of the work up at the front, riding smart.
When they're pushing the pace like that in single file, you see a little bit of a safer race, right? It's not quite as bunched up.
Yeah.
So props to Phi Delta Theta, three-time champion in the Cutters and Beta Theta Pi Black Key Bowls for setting that pace, setting the tempo.
Yeah, it is safer. I mean, just a while ago, we saw almost every one of the teams come back in one big pack, even though multiple teams have been lapped. But now you see it strung out. It's single file. It is safer that way.
Beta Theta Pi in front, followed by the Cutters, Black Key Bulls.
And at this point in the race, we talked a little bit about balance. It's about, you know, we're at 164 in. It's about sneaking in your number 3 or number 4 riders. I'm sorry, we're on 165, but it's at this time in the race, the calm before the storm, you're trying to keep some of your guys rested, right? And you're working towards that point. So you got maybe your number 3 or your number 4 out there, while your number 1, 2 rider is in the pit getting rested, spinning those legs out.
Everybody's going to have a little bit different strategies, so looking at Fiji here, wondering if they're going to try another attack like they did before. I don't see them matching up in a sprint necessarily, so if I want to give my team the best chance, I would like to see them make another move as well.
They haven't had a lot of luck in the sprint, so they haven't had a lot of luck of late, so why not throw them all down out there on the track?
Yeah, have no regrets.
Delta Tau Delta taking the lead.
I was thinking we had just a horrific Phi Gamma Delta wreck on the last lap years ago. I can't remember, around 2005, 2006, Matt Davis went down in turn 2, and it's just one of those kind of painful things to see. You've worked your way to that last lap, and then something like that happens. So just throw them out there early. Just put them in play and see what can happen.
I believe that was 2004 when it was Cutters and ATO and Fiji, Team Major Taylor, Acacia. 3 teams, I think, went down in turn 2 of the last lap.
The Cutters, Team 10. Those are your top 3. That's how they're holding form on the backside. Sigma Nu.
Delt's shaking his head at the pit. They had a bike out there ready to do a bike-to-bike exchange, and he didn't want to. That's just rider awareness right there. You know, he knows that this wasn't the best time to do an exchange. He didn't have a good gap. It's good preparation, good coaching, and good awareness. But it is a slow pace in the pack. I mean, if you want to do an exchange, it's just the time to jump.
So when we heard from the teams earlier, they don't know a lot about Delta Tau Delta this year. Haven't showed up at the track. They did one of the Spring Series events, but elected not to do missing out, not to do team pursuit. So Delta Tau Delta is a team that the other teams haven't seen a whole lot of.
Fiji going to set up for an exchange.
So exchange is continuing here. Here's Phi Gamma Delta. An exchange also for Captain Sigma before us.
Racing will continue from Armstrong Stadium.
Sigma Nu now in the lead.
The 63rd running of the Little 500 on Access TV. We'll be right back.
Fans have been treated to a fun afternoon of racing here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, the 63rd running of the Little 500 in Bloomington. Here's Khaleesi, Jason Sonneborn, Hans Arneson, and Jill Savage on hand.
Sigma Alpha Epsilon, Team 14.
Black Key Bulls making a move, Hans. You wondered when somebody was going to try something. Black Keys go first.
Yeah, we got about 25 laps to go. This is the time to start making moves. You got to wonder what their strategy was, and they're going for it. I mean, their coach is fired up. He's telling them keep riding hard. They've got over a full straightaway lead right now. They've kind of taken this pack by surprise, and we've seen the first response from Beta and Green charging after them.
And they queued off of a Beta Theta Pi exchange. Beta's went in for an exchange. Black Key sat their wheel, and instead of coming in, which they've done a number of times in a row, done that back-to-back exchange, they took it and rode with it. A lot of credit down there to Mike Choynacki, the Black Key Bulls coach, and what's going on right now. A lot of action.
Tyler Dennis, the Black Key Bulls, entirely made up of seniors.
It looks like in their pit, if you saw some of the signals, their coach was telling them one more lap. When you're out there as a rider, you're digging deep to give it everything you got. I mean, they want to put in a little bit of a gap here, set it up for an exchange, and expect them to keep pushing the pace.
Well, you're going to see the Black Key Bulls rider here. He's coming into 3. The pack's just coming out of turn 2, so he's got a significant advantage right now. And there's a group of lapped riders kind of that he's approaching right now. So if they can catch that group that's down, they'll get a chance to rest and recover and continue to throw down.
They do, and then Beta's coming in for an exchange as well. And I thought maybe Beta was going to catch up to Black Key Bulls, but they're going to switch riders. Puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage, but it's not a bad strategy. You know, one fresh rider going on for Black Key Bulls, put a fresh rider on for Beta.
Beta puts on Matthew Green.
Your top 8 or 9 teams going through the second turn.
That's a strong rider, and he's coming out. He's really focused on that backstretch right now. He's got a beautiful spin. You're looking at Black Key Bulls. Betas is trying to close.
Daniel Kinn, who started the race for Black Key Bulls, on the bike right now.
Oh, we've got a couple of mini groups, as you can see, Beta Theta Pi and Delta Tau Delta chasing. Cutters in the white jersey, trailing in group number 3. All right, so right now you're looking at the second group out there. Black Key Bulls, your leader, right on the rivet, throwing down the hammer. Black Key Bulls with a good gap. And great time. The second group on the field, right? You've got Delta Tau Delta and Beta Theta Pi trying to close that, and then out to dry a little bit. Right now you've got Phi Delta Theta, Cutters, Phi Gamma Delta, Theta Chi, Sig Ep, all looking to try to bring it back.
I don't know if you noticed though, but in front of Black Key Bulls is nothing but open cinders. They've got a lot of wind in front of them. They've got nothing really to jump on, to reach for and leapfrog. There's one rider up maybe 100 yards in front of him, but he's going to cruise right by him. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage, but you can't plan that. You just have to react to that. And I would expect them to kind of do some time trial type efforts here. Go 4, 5, 6 laps and then exchange and keep the gas on.
Beta Theta Pi, along with Delta Tau Delta, trying to chase Black Key Bulls.
The panache, the guts by Black Key Bulls, letting it go right now. Knowing that they've got a strong team, maybe they don't have the right sprinter, so they're just letting it go and showing it.
Yeah, this is their strategy. They didn't match up in a sprint against some of the other teams. They're very well balanced. We touched on it earlier. They had 4 riders who placed in the top 16 of individual time trials. That speaks loads about their depth and what they're doing right now. They're familiar with doing sets like this. They've done it in training. They're setting up for an exchange coming around on this lap. Now what you're going to see, Delts and Beta are so close to them. I think they're going to catch them.
Well, it's going to come together with this exchange a little bit, but now you've maybe got a 3-team break in a way, right? You've got Beta Theta Pi turning on the gas, full throttle, full gas, and Delta Tau Delta are defending champion right on their wheel.
Jill?
Yeah, Black Keys keeps going in short sets, and we tried to talk to Coach Val. He is too busy right now. He is writing the message every single turn around the racetrack for his riders, telling them to keep pushing the pace. The last one, he said, actually, they have a pretty good, sizable lead right now that he's happy with, but they're not going to let up right now.
Thanks, Jill. Beta Theta Pi going to come in for the exchange as well, guys.
Yeah, Beta's essentially dropped Delts on the backstretch, so Beta's has got a gap, but Delts and Black Key Bulls are looking to close it right now. Great set out of the Beta rider. Oh, and the next guy on the bike, he's accelerating out of the saddle. This is the time for Betas. They're going for it, looking very strong.
That's great. This is the counter attack. This is the
Tom
attack.
Laser on the bike now for Beta Theta Pi.
This is when their depth and experience can really kind of pay off for them. They're all out there all alone, but making the race for themselves, driving their own outcome.
20 laps. You know, they did it almost close to a record in team pursuit, the fastest time that we've seen in years with 4 riders. I believe that race is 15 laps. 20 laps isn't too much to ask for this team of 4.
This team with a great team pursuit time, and it may not be an example where they're out there on their own for the entire set. You know, can they get 1 or 2 teams to come with them? Can they start to break it up a little bit so it's not a bunch sprint of 9? Beta's making the race. They've got 150 meters on Black Key Bowls.
And then you've got the Cutters who are going to come in for an exchange, and the Fidelt.
Well, the Cutters, that's, you know, Tim Nixon looked a little bit tired when he came into me, and you see Kevin DePass getting on the bike for them. Kevin is their sprinter. We've talked a lot about that, but Cutters a little bit left out to dry. Kevin's got to close this down.
Yeah, he's going to use the speed that he's shown on the bike this spring to close the gap. Not to sprint right now, but he's going to sprint half a lap, try to catch Beta, who's coming around turn 4 right now.
And Beta's got about a third of a lap lead.
Beta's looking really smooth, maybe kind of learning a little bit from the Delta Tau Delta experience of last year. You know, we didn't have a wreck, we didn't have anything like that, but we had a couple attacks. We had a Black Key Bulls attack, and a lot of times it's not the first one, it's the second one, which was the Beta Theta Pi attack that looks like it's stuck.
It did. You know, Black Key Bulls has to be a little tired after the effort they just did.
Yeah, they're just coming in for an exchange right there. So that's your question is you go and make those moves, you wonder when the right time is, and you look up and you say, we're on lap 185, we got 15 to go.
To Beta, 15 laps is perfect for them, I think. I see them doing 4 or 5 lap sets.
Beta Theta does the exchange, and Eric Anderson back on the bike for the men in green.
We saw it last year in 2012. We've seen it in years past. We saw it with the Corleones. We saw it with Phi Delta Theta in 1996. But if you can make the race for yourself and you can get off the front and cue off something like this, it's just where you need to be. Nothing but daylight.
Phi Delta's making a move.
The disadvantage, Hans and Rich, is that the pack was so large. A number of teams, you know, you've got 5 teams right now trying to close this against Beta Theta Pi, and it's not really mano-y-mano.
Yeah, this is the first time they've had a collected effort. For a while there, we saw chaos and confusion amongst the other teams behind, reacting solo and riding by themselves. But now we've seen a collected effort between the Delts, Cutters, SIGEP, Black Key Bulls.
So there's a chance, but there's a straightaway lead, and there's so much pop. There's so much going on right now with Beta Theta Pi. It hasn't started to come back yet. They're essentially holding that gap.
A full curve lead.
They're holding that gap, and they're riding fast. I just had them at a 35-second lap. If they can keep that consistent, it's going to be hard to close.
And you see, you're not seeing this at home, but I saw a little bit of confusion there on the front stretch. Cutters pulled off, Kevin DePass pulled off, and SIGEP didn't pull through hard, right? So SIGEP, kind of a surprise team, and they're not really organized right now. Beta Theta Pi has over a straightaway lead right now.
10-second lead is what I just had them at.
We'll watch that difference. 8 seconds. Now 10 seconds the last.
Great effort right now. Throwing the cat amongst the pigeons. Beta has caused all kinds of chaos in the pack.
And they'll do an exchange.
The Betas with the exchange.
So Betas gets a fresh rider. The rider that came out is just absolutely gassed.
He can't move those legs anymore.
Will Craig on the bike, and those are the jelly legs you guys talked about, and saying it's not that easy to walk after you pedaled as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, and that's okay. He did his job. He rode a great set. He had a great exchange. Get off the bike. You can lay down on the track if you want to.
Lap 189 out of 200.
And just turning it over quick as Craigie's got that 46-18 gear, and it's looking like nothing for him right now. He's out there laying down the law.
They're looking better. Every lap they're starting to look better and better.
Cutters come in for an exchange.
Essentially off the back a little bit was the Cutters exchange. No real advantage, no real gap.
No. We're seeing the reaction. I mean, these teams trying to catch right now are just gassed, just exhausted.
And Beta Theta Pi is looking smooth.
Looking very smooth. And we talked about it earlier. They all had a silent understanding of how to ride with each other. They're all senior riders. They're all veteran Little 5 riders. They're experienced and they know what to do out here. And it's showing.
And you don't get the green jersey just because you want it. You have to earn it.
You do have to earn it. And you know how you earn that is by being fast.
And it's what they themselves against the clock is what they know well. You know, they've known that all spring, and they know we've got the fitness, we've got the experience, we've got the teamwork in Beta Theta Pi that showed that team pursued individual time trials. And essentially, this is a time trial effort for them right now.
That's right. They may not have proven themselves in some of the sprints against Kevin and the Cutters or the Delts, but they've proven themselves against the clock.
And the separations, you know, you got Delta Tau Delta chasing, you got Phi Delta Theta with them, but there's a gap now back to Cutters and Theta Chi, Sig Up, Fiji's has fallen off the back, so Beta's just causing all kinds of havoc.
All kinds of havoc. I mean, they've got, Beta has a 9-second advantage over the Delts and Phi Delta Theta.
We are on the 192nd lap.
And they're going to do an exchange.
Beta Theta Pi has scored 192.
Theta Pi.
And an exchange for Beta Theta Pi at the end of the
try to keep that lead, maybe even stretch it out.
And Phi Delta Theta.
Great set again on the Beta rider. And having those fans there, it's so awesome to have them there all race. They're cheering for you and they keep you going. They keep you pumped up.
Beta Theta Pi in the lead at 190. 2 hours, 1 minute, 16.6.
Look at the grit on the Phi Delta Theta rider's face. He knows it's, I think that's Rob Lee on the bike for them, their rookie rider, strong rider, but he knows it's all coming down to this. Now's the time, right?
Yeah.
193 in the books, on 194 is the time to pull this back if you're Phi Delta Theta.
Matthew Green on the bike for Beta Theta Pi.
And Rob Lee for Phi Delta Theta, the Delta Tau Delta rider, they've got to go right now. You've got to start to close this gap down. They're holding it about a straightaway. You know, the betas are not showing any chinks in their armor right now.
Quick check in with Jill.
Hey, Rich, I just saw Coach Ryan Drummy with Phi Delta Theta. He said ride to the end, so it doesn't look like they're going to make any more exchanges from here to the finish.
And that's incredible, because if this rookie rider, Rob Lee, can do that, and essentially get close, you lose, we talked about it earlier, but you lose essentially 4 seconds each time you do an exchange, so you've got to ride a number of laps in order to keep that gap, and Matt Green's doing that right now, but it's a big effort they're trying to do for Phi Delta Theta to close it out.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, the gap I had right now is 7 seconds from Beta back to Phi Delta. So you're right, if they do an exchange with Beta, that's going to lose 4 seconds and they'll be able to start to close. But the big question mark is what is left in Phi Delta's tank.
And the Phi Delta rider there, Eric Anderson, he was up on the bars. That was the first chink I've seen. And I see Delta Tau Delta now taking advantage of it. It's starting to come down with a big effort. And PDT needs to hold on. Phi Delta Theta needs to hold on with that big last set.
Beta Theta Pi still at the lead. Tom Laser on the bike. Lap 196 out of 200.
Oh, and they're kind of making the race right now. Delta Tau Delta just dropped Phi Delta Theta. It is coming up hard on Beta Theta Pi. So great effort there by the Delta rider to essentially bridge and get in the lead group.
How about this? You've got your defending champ, Delta Tau Delta, and Paul Smith on the bike.
Great job pulling that bike back. I mean, like I said, there was 7 seconds on the last lap, but they did an exchange. They kept the gas on. They caught up. Phi Delta, they kind of blew up. He didn't have enough in the tank. They've got a new rider out now set up to exchange with Phi Delta Theta.
But there are 2 on the lead. Beta Theta Pi and Delta Tau Delta.
So close, and that Phi Delta Theta rider in his first race, they were asking a lot out of him. He's out there, he gave it all he had, but essentially he's pedaling squares right now, and he's a bit in the hurt locker. Look for a Phi Delta Theta exchange, and essentially Delta Tau Delta and Beta Theta Pi are playing a little cat and mouse right now. The pace is close, has slowed down, and it's above 40 seconds. 40 seconds per lap, that is, so the pace is slowed down a ton.
And Phi Delta Theta just put on a new rider. I mean, if the pace is slowed that much, We're going to waste too much time.
And you can see the reaction right now. The Betas know it. The Betas are trying to make the race, and the Delta Tau Delta, again, Paul Smith, road racing background, we've seen it. They like the draft, right? So they want to be that number 2 rider, want to have their sights in front of them.
Tom Laser on the bike, Beta Theta Pi.
Looks like an exchange about to happen for the Betas.
Beta Theta Pi going to do an exchange.
Well, and now does Paul Smith, we've got 198 scored. This is the time to go. They may have played their cards perfectly.
Let's see here. Delts don't look like they're going to do an exchange. They're going to try to keep this gap. The big question is going to be, can Beta close it?
About 25 meters right now. Beta Theta Pi, a lot to ask with that late exchange.
And we're going to come down to the final lap. And here's the game of chase for the little 500 championship.
Paul Smith, all that experience. Now is the time to go. Has he learned from RJ Stewart? And can he close it out? The Beta Theta Pi rider, it looks like Craigie on the bike for Beta Theta Pi. That's the sprinter he probably did not want to see.
And Craigie now going to come up out of the seat and head into turn 3. And they're bumping a little bit. And they're turning and into 4. The 4th turn we come, and down to the final stretch of the 2013 Little 500. Beta Theta Pi wins it.
And you're right, you saw all kinds of bumping going into turn 3, and you saw the Delts rider, Paul Smith, with his hands off the bars. But if you're going to take it, you've got to do it, right? And I didn't see any impeding out there. I didn't see any reason for a penalty. I saw a sprinter that knew the line and that knew going into turn 3 was the time to take it, and that's William Craigie, Beta Theta Pi.
That was just racing.
Another look, gents.
They continue on.
This is just racing right there. These guys are experienced. You see, they want to protect their space on the bike, their place on the track. They're just bumping and riding and racing.
And the bump kind of looked like it came from Delta Tau Delta a little bit. If Craigie would have passed in the gutter, which he did not do, that would have been a penalty. But he stayed on the cinders. He stayed around that white line. He stayed in the groove, and that's where he needed to be.
How about the effort from Craigie to hold on to that bike that bumps the gutter?
Great bike handling skills. It happens with experience, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Beta Theta Pi's last win in 1964. That house will be celebrating tonight.
We got the repeat yesterday in the women's race. We didn't get it in the men's, but it was close.
It was close. I mean, yesterday we saw it with Kappa Gamma in the green. They tried to make an effort like that. Today, it was Beta Theta Pi who was able to make it stick.
And gents, we talked about how do you get rid of the sprinters? What kind of aggressive work do you do out there on the track? And Beta's made the race, early. They started going for it, 190 or so, 10 laps out. Delta Tau Delta got the lead, but it was that trimming the field, getting ahead that made it work.
Here's Jill.
Thanks, Rich. Here with John Grant, head coach. And hey, the first win since 1964. What does this mean?
This is great. These guys showed a lot of heart today. They proved that they were strong enough to do it. Exciting race. What a battle there at the end. When it came down to it, they toughed it out, got it done. It's great.
You had that last exchange with 2 laps to go, putting William back on the bike. That was a close call, but it worked out for you.
It was. It wasn't the plan. We were hoping for 2 last sets of 4. Didn't come down to that, and it was better to do 1 with 2 to go instead of the last lap to give Craigie some time. So just worked out great, worked out perfectly.
With these 4 seniors, how special is this?
This is real special. I've been working with these guys 2 to 4 years, and close group of guys. They really came together, and this is a great moment. It's just a great moment. Really
Go celebrate with your team.
Will do, thanks.
Thanks, John. Congratulations. Rich?
Thank you, Jill. Victorious group of Beta Theta Pi, and the judges having the conversation right now with Delta Tau Delta.
Well, again, bike racing involves a little bit of contact from time to time, and then Little 5, these guys, there is going to be contact, and if there would have been a pass in the gutter or something illegal happened, I think the officials would have called it. But in that situation, he's still on the cinders. He's on the white line there.
Right.
And he's making his move, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And essentially, both riders are trying to keep it upright, and they did a great job of keeping it safe. William Craigie taking it.
And the reaction after talking to the officials.
Courtney Bishop may not be happy with that call, but I mean, again, to me, I agree. It's just, you couldn't fault either one of those riders. They were both trying to hold the inside line.
Let's go!
It was a great race. And
Barcelona just to watch
great
this
strategy.
race.
And now's a good time to go go congratulate the winners right there, because that was an incredible effort by Beta Theta Pi.
It really was.
And then the final push down the stretch. Craigie comes up victorious.
As soon as the Delta.
Officials still having a conversation, so no official decision as of yet. And like you see in a variety of other sports, you know, officials huddling around, and here's another look at what they're examining.
Yeah, to me, I mean, impeding is when you're impeding the progress of another rider, and I don't think that was done. And Craigie's coming up on the inside. He was still on the cinders, like you said. He wasn't riding in the gutter. I think it was just racing right there.
He was on the pole line, right? He got thrown into the gutter, but when he was in the gutter, he wasn't able to advance himself, and he got thrown in, right?
Yeah.
So you got to stay up at that point.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if you see any kind of relegation there from the officials. And again, I think
Officials want to take another look.
And the interesting thing is, Delts was not beat, you know, after that kind of bump in turn 3. There was a chance, you know, I said he lost a lot of his focus, a lot of his confidence after that happened, but riding on the pole line right there. You don't see it happen a lot, but, you know, the Delta Tau Delta rider had started to sift a little bit to the outside, and you saw the pass on the inside.
You're right, and they still had a full quarter of a turn there to go. The race wasn't over. I think Craigie's just had more in his tank at the end there. Coming out of turn 4, he won the sprint straight up.
Yes, absolutely. We'll wait for official word. At the celebration right now for Beta Theta Pi. First since 64. It'll be a pretty big night in the house.
Yeah, they've relocated since then. They've got a house on North Jordan now. It'll be a lot of celebration. We'll see if it holds. It's flirting with, in my mind.
Official
it's
word
flirting
is,
in my mind because
no protest. It stands.
Well, there's a white line and then there's the gutter, right? And so I'm happy to see that call made by Mike Howard and the officials.
I would agree.
Congratulations to Beta Theta Pi. The green jerseys do
And so,
mean
ladies
something.
and gentlemen, the results you see posted.
They do
will
today. They'll
stand
be
for
wearing
today.
yellow next year.
There is a no call at the end of this race, so the results as posted. Beta Theta Pi.
Beta Theta
A
Pi.
second championship for the house.
Champions
The whole
in
team winning today.
2013. Our
A
unofficial
tie
results.
of 2 hours,
Delta
7
Tau
minutes,
Delta,
34
first a year
and
ago.
10 seconds. Delta Tau Delta,
And
Team
then
13 is
coming in second,
Phi
Phi Delta Theta just didn't quite have enough in the tank. And the Cutters in fourth. And Black Key Bulls, who made the first move to really get this race kicked into high gear at the end, end up finishing fifth.
Yeah, it wasn't the first move that made the race, which was Black Key Bulls. It was that second move, Beta Theta Pi on the counter. Just holding on with a great performance. You know, and then it came back together. It was such an exciting race because Delta had a little advantage, but Beta had the fresh rider out there after the late exchange.
That was exciting to watch. I mean, Delta with a great performance to come back into second place. They shut down the gap. We thought for a while that they weren't even going to come close, but they put in an excellent effort to finish in second place.
Well, it was that team effort, Beta Theta Pi, that you talked about, Hans, of using all your riders and not necessarily just having one come down. You needed that little bit of a sprinter at the end, but it was using everybody to create an opportunity to really put the race away.
Yeah, I'd be curious to look at the stats for laps on each rider, but it seemed very balanced. It was very spread out, and Craigie obviously had enough left in his tank for the sprint. It's well coached by John Grant I like that strategy of being aggressive with about 20 laps to go. I mean, it's fun to watch.
Well, a number of things were impressive, none more so to me than being able to handle that bike up on that lip of the gutter, that bike shaking pretty good with all that pressure on you to try to win a little 500, to handle it, get it straightened out, claim the lead, and then win the sprint down the stretch.
Yeah, he showed his experience. He showed his experience. These guys do a lot of bike racing collegiately. Bike racing during the summer. Some of these guys are Category 2 bike racers here in their last race in the Little 500.
That group right there, the house, is going to be Category 1 fun tonight.
Right now it's about college. You know,
Yes,
tonight
absolutely.
college is going to be a little bit crazy for these guys, and they're going to live it up as they should. They've got a whole swarm of fraternity brothers and family and friends around. As you see, Phi Delta Theta, I think, our third place team, going to accept their trophy. They've got Alan Smith up there, a mechanic, and Brian Drummond. You know, I think it came a little bit down to strategy for them. You know, Rob Lee had ridden a great race at that point, but they left him out there a little bit too long, and essentially he got dropped by Delts when the gap was closed and took him out of contention, but a great third place.
It really was. Great effort
for the Phi Delts.
And you know what happens now after this is that you go and you talk about today's race, and then you know what you guys all start talking about? Next year's race. You start thinking about, well, that was this year, and this was great, and who's coming back, and everybody's graduating, and what's it going to start to look like next year?
Yeah, that's right. You'd be amazed how many bike riders you see out in Bloomington.
Yes.
You know, next week, a lot of the people in the stands, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. I need to try that, right? And so now is a great time to recruit and a great time to build the program for next year. Beta Theta Pi needs to retool and get some new recruits in the program, as a lot of these guys have some years in them. I think Craigie said he was a senior, so I don't think he's coming back.
Right, but you're right. Our team is senior-laden team.
Use the momentum within the house.
Sure.
The excitement within the house. There's going to be guys who want to fill those shoes. Get them excited. Train with them here while you're here for a couple more weeks.
The Delta Tau Delta getting the second place trophy, but the winner of the 2013 Little 500, Beta Theta Pi, their first victory since 1964. You've been watching Access TV's exclusive coverage of the 63rd Little 500. The executive producer of Access Sports, Darylene Wolf. Director, Erica Ferrero. Features producer, Mike Ricci. Access TV Engineering, Dan Neighbors and Lonnie Thomas. Manager of Live Events Operations, Chris Markwell. Post-production, Andy Edwards. And thanks to all the hardworking men and women who make this happen. And special thanks, the IU Student Foundation. For my broadcast partners, Jason Sonneborn, Hans Arneson, Jill Savage, Rich Cellini, good afternoon from Bloomington.